What's up, everybody? Good afternoon or good morning, good evening, wherever you're listening. I'm joined by some awesome special guests today. We're going to talk about a franchise Brian and I really love. We've been talking about it almost like 10 years now, as long as we've known each other. Probably the thing that started conversations with us. We're talking about Assassin's Creed today. And joined by special guests. You know Brian, you know if you've been listening to this. If not, my name is Joel. This is Brian. We love Assassin's Creed. There you go. Anyways, I'm going to just go down the list how it is on Discord. So Justice, Ian, and Vic, why don't you guys introduce yourselves real quick, and then we'll start with some questions and then just dive in and talk about this franchise.
Yeah, I'm Justice. I've been playing Assassin's Creed for pretty much since the game launched. It was, I think, a big reason I got the next-gen console at the time was to get the Assassin's Creed 1 game, just because that first monumental trailer really was something for me. And I've kind of fallen off in the years since Syndicate. So I'm curious what people who are fans and are passionate about the newer games have to say. That's all I've really got right now.
Right on.
I guess I'm next, right?
Yep.
All right. My name's Ian, Matt. If you see me on Discord or see my Discord tag pop up, I've been playing Assassin's Creed. I want to say the second iteration when Ezio came into it, and then played all the way up until like Syndicate. I missed the first one out because I got an Xbox 360 pretty late and was just like, well, let's start at 2. It seems like they're not, because it would always be a different character each time. Didn't seem too connected, but quickly learned everything's pretty connected in this franchise, right? So, love the games. Kind of fallen off a little bit because I haven't been able to really dive into Origins and Odyssey, Valhalla. But actually looking really forward to the next iteration that's coming out where it's based in Japan. So hype for that, hype for the discussion. I know, right? Finally. One of the characters is a samurai of all things, right? So it's like,
yeah.
Oh man.
All right. Well, I'm Vic from Games We Must podcast. Brian, Joel, thank you again so much for having me again. The last one that we did with Star Wars, I was so excited, pumped. That was such a fun blast one that we had. For your viewers that are first timers that are checking this episode out, go check out that Star Wars one. That one was a fun one. And if it's first time watching, give these guys a follow, man. United We Nerd, you guys are awesome. You guys are great. I love following your content. I love following your tournaments, your competitions. Well, I still want one in, guys. I still want in on that competition. I want that belt. That belt right there behind you.
Belt's mine, baby.
That's gonna be mine too. Watch.
We're gonna carbon date this shit right now because in a few months it might not be here.
Hey, dude, just don't invite Nolan to a Street Fighter tournament, right?
No, we did not.
We haven't played with him in a long time.
We did not.
On purpose, huh? Yeah, no.
Master Zangief, Master Akuma. There's a reason why we yeah. Thank you guys for your interest. Brian, before we jump to the question, what was for you the first one, or was there like another? I'm pretty sure it was the first one. Was that the UWN? But
so one was the first one for me. Funny enough, I had no idea that the franchise existed until one of my high school friends had me come over and was playing it himself. And I was just watching it, so like, okay, it's like, it's a game that has parkour, assassins, and whatnot. And I remember when he let me play it, one of the first things I did was I did like the kind of GTA thing where it's like, I wonder how many guards I can kill before they kill me. And so I'm just in the square, and guards are just coming out throughout the whole city, and there's just like piles of bodies. Like, this is weird. And then, of course, it got me to buy the game myself, and then I played it, and I was like, "Oh, this is actually an interesting story." So yeah, I've been sunk into the Assassin's Creed rabbit hole since day one, or game one, I should say. And I do have opinions on the franchise, which we'll get into, for better or for worse. So I'm excited. This is gonna be fun.
Nice. I just want to say, for me, my friend Chris, who some of you may know, or listening, I'd rather. He's like, I played this game. It's not for me. I don't like it. You want to try it? I was like, yeah, I'll try it. I saw the trailer. It looked cool. And then I was in. Like the first couple missions, it was sick. Stealth mechanics, of course, the hidden blade, right? I think that's part of the allure, which I'll ask in a second. But yeah, I've been like kind of in and out here and there. I think with the recent RPG trilogy, it kind of brought me back in, which I still have some qualms with, but I think it's cool what they did. But I do like with Mirage, they made a return to the classic style. So that was pretty cool. But yeah, let's get started. My first question to you guys, we'll just go in order. I'll list off, but the hidden blade, is that most of the allure? Is that what brought us in? Is that what makes it cool? The stealth, like, just want to say, it's like iconic with Assassin's Creed now, right? Like, I didn't even, like, there's actual stuff behind it. Like, that's kind of cool. I never thought it would, be a thing in history, but apparently it is. So, start with you, Brian. Is that mostly the hidden blade?
I mean, whenever they debut a new Assassin's Creed game, right, one of the first things that people look for is, what does the hidden blade look like? Like, when we got to Odyssey, that was like one of the big things where it's like, well, there's no hidden blade in Odyssey. That was the one thing that people were like, what? I don't get it. Because what they tend to do is they announce a game, and then a few months after the games have been announced, one of the first products they have is a replica of the hidden blade. And Joel, you've had a couple yourself. You've had there. I know most people probably get like at least a few. So yeah, I think the hidden blade itself is pretty integral to the franchise, because it not only is it one of the main assassination mechanics of the game, but it's also a kind of almost like a character unto itself, because it gives you an idea of the style of each assassin that has their own. Because you look back and it's like, okay, well, Altair had the original, Ezio introduced 2, and then of course throughout the iterations of his games he kept adding on to it, where he had like the gun attachment, he had the hook blade, he had like so many other like advancements onto that, and then Connor with like the switchblade, assassin's blade, and like so on and so forth. You have all these assassins that have their own very unique assassin's blades. I feel the franchise could be as popular as it is without them, but I think that's what set it off as a kind of unique thing to itself, just being able to have the variation of weaponry, but then always be able to go rely back onto the assassin's blade at the end of the day, no matter like what kind of weapons you have in the era of each game. So I think, yeah, the blades are pretty important, I think.
All right, let's hear from Justice, Ian, Vic, and then I'll go last.
Yeah, I think as you're kind of talking about, Brian, there is a big part in the identifying characteristics of the hidden blade, how it reflects on the assassin. I know you guys are mentioning you talked about Star Wars pretty recently, and as you're saying this, I think it all is kind of very lining up with lightsabers. It's this kind of mysterious weapon. You don't know enough about how it works, but it can do these things that you aren't super sure of, and it's this technology that not everyone's really aware of, but a couple people can handle it well and give to certain people, and everyone's a little bit different, and everyone, sometimes they're janky, and that's reflective of who it is, or sometimes they're clean and unique, and they've got all these extra attachments and do extra things. So yeah, I think they're very important. I don't know. In the Assassin's Creed games, I know I tend to avoid using the hidden blade just for my own purposes. So
Okay.
I think that's kind of my own. The thing I'm going to keep coming back to a little bit in this franchise is those kind of contradictory feelings of understanding the importance of the hidden blades and knowing that they're great tools and weapons. But how often is that your primary focus? Do you almost always choose a different weapon? So that's kind of my thought with the hidden blade. My personal favorite, as we were thinking about it, is probably the Ezio, the double. He's got the pistol and the left gauntlet. Additionally, I was touching upon some of those games a little earlier. He's got technically poison darts and a poison blade there too.
Oh,
So you can use those mechanics. I don't need the hook blade, but I think that one's also a cool addition. So I'll leave that on my hidden blade opinion.
For me, yeah, with the hidden blades, it was always what can you do with them, and what, not only just their design, like their design always looked cool. To me, just a hidden little tool that no one could see, so you could just walk up and just like take someone out in a crowd and walk away like nothing ever happened. But to me, it was always the cool additions, like Justice touched on it with like Ezio, how he had so many different additions because you had Da Vinci basically like, hey, look, I cooked up this little extra cool thing for you, like, try this out and see, tell me how it works, and you just take this out and go. I think they expanded on it a bit more with Unity and Syndicate, because I remember in Unity, you had kind of like more of a crossbow function with your hidden blade. Like it wouldn't be a just straight you go up and stab someone. You could actually launch a dart from like miles away, and it wasn't necessarily like a poison dart or something like that. You had like this long range capability, and that's what I always liked about it, is it kept kind of always shifting and evolving. And then with the RPG style, like it dialed back to being what its original function was. I remember seeing in Origins, but they gave you like, oh, here's all the crazy weapons you can use. Like this guy can wield an axe, and I'm just like, I don't know how much of an axe is useful for an assassination, man. Like you're coming up behind someone with like a big old battle axe and just trying to cut him in half. I mean, I never thought that was too handy, but yeah. With me, the assassin's blade was always kind of a high point for me, especially like when you first get it. I loved it in Black Flag, especially because just the whole feel of being a pirate. You already have like the pirate feel and all the sea shanties going on. But then you also have this aspect of where you can swing from like the rafters and like assassinate someone like that as you're taking over a ship. It's just little aspects like that let the combat and the overall sort of like play style and kind of like it feels like you'd almost customize it in a sense, because it's how you use the blade at the end of the day as a player versus like this is what it's not linear. It's very modular is what I always felt like, and that's what I always loved about it, is how do you use it, how do you find your play style, and going with each character in the franchise, you can definitely get like a lot of fun combinations and a lot of fun things.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
yeah. You guys touched a lot of it. You guys hit, about with the hidden blade. I think the two main things of the Assassin's Creed franchise, before the new three, the Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla, is that the main mechanic was stealth and the hidden blade. How you utilizing stealth, how you utilizing the hidden blade. The first one, you're using the hidden blade to, assassinate your target, and then you start stealthing. You blend in with some monks to like hide away from where, or you're in the bench. And so, the hidden blade is iconic when it comes to the Assassin's Creed games. And it's a shame that with Odyssey, they're like, hey, you got a spear now. You're like, a spear? Like what am I doing with the spear? I need something on my wrist, And so and I'm one of those weirdos where with when you had the hidden blade, I think in the first, second, and third game, I think if you push like it was the X or wherever you're playing, you could just like whip out your like blade and just walk around with like your blade whipped out. And I would just constantly do that when I'm in the crowd. I'd just be like whipping out my blade. I'm like, oh, I'm so cool. I'm just whipping out my blade like that. And so I love doing that mechanic. It was just fun. I just walk around sometimes, whip out the blade, unless I'm like next to like a civilian accident, you kill him, and then it's like, all right, whoops.
Whoops.
Ezio would never do that.
You're gonna be desynchronized. I'm like, oh my bad. I'm sorry. And so and I think you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but in the third one, when you're Connor, the hidden blade can become like a like a little like knife, like where it comes out. And
Yeah.
I thought that was
the little
so cool.
switchblade one. Oh
yeah,
my
I thought
God.
that was where like it would come in. I'm like, oh, that's such a cool little mechanic that they added on there. And you see that in all the games, how you're adding, like you guys said, like with Assassin's Creed 2, you're adding the different things, the gun, and Unity, which is one of my favorites. Against popular opinion, but I loved Unity. Unity, I think, was one of the best of the franchise to me. Hot take. But I love the way you integrated, the crossbow. You can use different types of darts. I would always you can utilize that with your stealth, where it's like you're shooting darts that have like make the guards go berserk and start attacking everyone else. So like it clears out a path for you, or you're knocking them out so you can instead of like you can stealth your way around. And so I think the hidden blade is very iconic when it comes to that. Again, I haven't played Valhalla yet, so I don't know if they brought back the hidden blade. I think one of my friends said that they did, but in a different way. And then I'm assuming with Mirage also they brought it back. But yeah, like to answer your question, Joe, yeah, I think the hidden blade is iconic, along with the stealth mechanics that were integrated into the game. And so, I mean, it's not Assassin's Creed without that hidden blade for me.
Yeah. To answer your question, it's not really a spoiler because it happens quick. You do get a hidden blade in Valhalla, and I think, kind of quickly. And it's kind of funny. It's opposite of Odyssey, where you don't need one. And Eivor's like, I want everyone to know. And they put it actually on the outside. So that's all I'm going to say about that. I just think it's interesting. And it's like kind of encrusted with gold. Like they aren't afraid. But
nice.
Yeah, I think, definitely it's part of the allure. That's what made it cool. I mean, later we get more weapons and it becomes more interesting. But definitely found myself like, I don't feel like using the axe right now. I'll just take on these guys with parry with the blade.
Yeah.
It's satisfying sometimes. I definitely think Connor's is my favorite. That how it's so modular, like you guys are saying, it becomes like a dagger. I do like you guys mentioned Arno's with the crossbow. That's pretty cool. But yeah, definitely the focus in the later games is on weapon combat, not so much stealth. Especially Valhalla is like you're just gonna go in with your warhammer and just fucking knock this guy's lights out to see his gods, And but there is a time it's like you need to use your hidden blade, which I do appreciate.
Mm-hmm.
With that though, you guys brought up some cool mechanics and ways of play. I just want to go. I'm gonna go to this question real quick. Do you have like a favorite mechanic or technique they've introduced? I think Valhalla, actually, because it's recently on my mind. When they introduced, I was new. You play dead. And the guards could leave after a while. That's pretty cool. Or later you upgrade it, you could assassinate them while playing dead, which I think is hilarious. I definitely did it. Like I did a big round of combat. Eivor is like just knocks out. This guard's like, "What's wrong?" And of course, they're like, "Oh, you're just waiting for it." They come and check on you. If you guys have a favorite, just go ahead and share it. I'm gonna go backwards. I'm gonna go from Vic to Ian to Justice to Brian. Just
man, all that pressure. All right, I mean, I could talk about all day. Like, say, I'm a big fan of the franchise. I'm one of those sickos that wants to 100% the game, and have won all the way up to Origins. So I've 100%. Probably let's say that I've 100% everything, collected everything, everything's 100%.
Got all those feathers.
Lad.
Yeah, I got everything. Feathers, the towers. Yeah, literally, I started this journey, back in 2017, I think. And I went from Assassin's Creed 1 all the way up to right now. I'm in Odyssey trying to 100% that thing now, and that map is huge. So that thing is taking me.
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah, thing. I mean, Origins itself was already such a pain just to 100% because I had all the DLC to 100%. All those, it was such a pain. But going to your question about the mechanics, I mean, one of my favorite things I love doing was when you're getting chased, especially like in Assassin's Creed 2 and 3, is when you're getting chased, you could blend in when you just sit down on the bench and the people just pass by you and you're just blending in like you're sitting down with somebody, or if someone's coming to see you and you just stab and you just push them down on the bench and you start walking by. I thought that was so cool where it's you're just blending in. Obviously the first one where you're blending in with the monks, you start praying with everyone. A lot of parodies have been done with that and stuff. So I thought that was such cool different little ingenuities that they've made with how do you get away from your pursuers? How do you do a lot of those things? With the later games, you started using tools like stun bombs or flash smoke bombs and the nature. But with Assassin's Creed 1 and 2, you hide in hay, you're running around corners. I mean, in 3 you could now peek around corners, which was pretty cool because you could kind of what is it called, up against the wall and you're checking. Or in Unity, you're crouching, you're hiding. So I think those mechanics of getting away from your pursuers, how do you escape, was so cool. I'm kind of sad with Odyssey that you can't hide in hay anymore. That's just only used for jumps. And that sucks. I'm I want to hide in a haystack, but it's no, you automatically get out of it. I'm oh man, this is lame. Because I thought that was so cool. But I think the mechanics I think my favorite one would be when you're sitting on the bench, you're running away and you just sit on the bench and you see your pursuers just run past you. I thought that was pretty cool because I'm oh, that's a pretty neat trick you can use. But yeah, those some of the few that I could name.
Yeah, no, I love that, and then I also love the fact that when they added the grapple hook or like the hook blade,
Yeah.
and like you're running around and you like Spider-Man out of like a random location, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, you're just like
Yeah.
shooting it up.
It's basically it's one of my favorite things from the franchise. You know, it's the different things they incorporated, the different ways that you can kind of escape pursuers, the different ways you can like find ways to play. That in alone has just been my favorite. And you know, I also love too, like in Syndicate, when you started getting your like gang all together, like you basically had like I forgot when you played as like the brother. It was basically more
Jacob,
blatantly. Yeah, and you're basically playing as like more of a mob boss. You're like, hey,
Mhm.
go rough these guys over here, and you just see like a squad of like your whole like
Gang, yeah.
gang basically just like go get them. You know, it's very 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 fun in that aspect. And then when you switched over right to the sister, she went back to that very stealthy sort of like that sort of like sneaking around that you had to do. So you had this nice little duality. And then Unity, you know, I agree with Vic. Like I actually enjoy that game out of the franchise, and I just feel like it got a lot of flack because of all the bugs that it had going on with it.
Right.
But once a lot of those got fixed, like I played it more after, or I started playing it after it got fixed. Oh man, it was probably one of the most fun out of the games I've had. That I just love the story a lot. Love that it was set in like Paris, and you know, a lot of his mechanics for Argo were just really just very fun to use. You know, like I think he had a grappling hook as well, but it was more like it very much made me feel more like Spider-Man than like Ezio's hook shot, because it would just shoot up and like yank you up, and it was like just a little blade that came out and locked into part of the like building or place that you're trying to scale up at.
I think Unity had also one of the best like parkour systems ever. Of all of them. Like
no,
the
it
parkour
just
system,
felt fun.
it just felt like you're actually parkouring. I was like, dude, this is legit.
Yeah,
It
like
was the free flowing mechanic that they dumbed down in Syndicate because of how many people hated Unity. Because
yeah.
like, well, people didn't like Unity. We need to backtrack. It's like, no, it was actually good. Stop,
That was a
No,
good best
like-
part,
please.
yeah.
there's a lot of good things that were in that game that they just were like, we'll dial it back here in Syndicate, and then it's like,
Yeah. Oh,
don't think
man.
you should.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, I think just the one I think about a lot that I almost wish maybe more games would incorporate, or it's just a fun little change, is one of the ones I just remember in Revelation, where you kind of actually get the ability to start swapping to like offhand stuff.
Oh,
You can
yeah.
have,
Yeah.
That was
fire,
fun. That was
pistol,
fun.
or just like bomb, sword, and it was just kind of completing this arc they kind of set up of just being like, oh right, now you've got the full toolkit, you can do what you
Yeah.
want. This is your playground.
You are the master.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, that was really good. I'm actually kind of glad that at least some of us here actually really like Unity, because
Yeah.
to preface my answer, Joel remembers this. The release day of Unity, it was him, me, and I believe our friend Ben all got it the same
Was
day.
it me? I'm gonna bring it up later. We did.
It wasn't
I didn't
you?
get it till later. No, I think it was Marcelo or Jameson.
Okay. You might have been in the party chat though. I don't remember.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, this is on Xbox days.
I remember the conversation that day. I remember
Yeah.
that.
So everybody was loading in their games and started playing Unity. It's like, okay, cool. It's like I got home, I loaded it, I entered the party chat. I was like, all right, here we go. And I got the start menu bug,
Oh.
where the game would not load no matter what I did. And so I was just sitting there wanting to play Unity, listening to everybody else play Unity in the chat, and I'm just like, fuck.
The game's not working.
But then eventually they did start dishing out the patches. Everything started working. I started playing, and one of the mechanics I really appreciate that Unity, I believe it was Unity that introduced this, that I wish they did more, was when you got to your big missions they gave you multiple options on how to tackle the mission.
Yes.
So it's like, okay, you want to go brute force this? Just come barging through the gate, start attacking all the guards that are in like this fortress. It's like, okay, sweet. Or you can go talk to this person, bribe them to try to, give you like the key or go unlock the door and make sure there's no guards around for you just to slide in. Or like, hey, there's like a hole in the wall. You can go in there, go through the back rooms and just kind of find your way to your target. And I just thought that was so cool. And, due to the backlash and stuff, I guess Ubisoft was like, okay, we're going to dial back a lot of what Unity did. And, I believe the first deal, the Paris DLC for Valhalla kind of did something like that. And then it wasn't until Mirage where they actually kind of brought that mechanic back. And I just remembered how much I loved the options of how to tackle any mission that you wanted to in your own play style. So you didn't have to feel like you had to go through the motions of certain like story missions or side missions, stuff like that. It gave you the more freedom to express how you wanted to be the assassin or how you wanted to proceed in this. And I can remember it was one of the missions in Unity where I believe it was this, not a dignitary, but like a higher upper class target. And they locked themselves into their private quarters in like the far back of like their whole like mansion area. And it's like, okay, you need to find your way to get back there. And I just randomly stumbled upon this guy. It was like, hey, I don't really like this dude. If you just give me some money, I'll give you the key. And you could just go into like this side corridor area.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
And then the corridor leads you to like this landing that is like right above this guy's like desk area. I was like, oh, fuck, this is sick.
Yeah.
And just avoid a big fight. Just knock him out right away.
Definitely.
As long as we're talking about it, let's talk Unity. Let's talk other things.
Let's go, Unity.
I want to preface with a couple things though. I didn't play Unity till way after my friend group did, and all the bugs were gone. So I understood it was like, oh, it was pretty buggy. We didn't like it, but when I went in, it was fine. It was patched. I was happy. I think one I saw was like there was a guy in a tree. It wasn't like game breaking,
What is
but
this?
I enjoyed it. I even there was like a ranking system for multiplayer, right? And then no one was really playing it anymore, so I brought our group up, like our ranking.
You did. Yeah, you did.
I was like, guys, we're moving up. It's like, yeah, there's only 5 teams playing. I was like, yeah, we're still going up. But yeah, I thought that was pretty cool. We could be, and we had that choice. We could stealth it, or one of our friends decided just to go gung ho and kind of, we didn't get paid as much. But I think I was talking about it with someone else recently. But yeah, just the beginning of them starting to. I mean, they already were, but churning out games year after year, and we just see kind of the effects of not fine tuning and polishing these games. I did enjoy Unity and my time with it. It's not my favorite, but I did like it. I don't think it deserves as much hate, but also it's like, why did you guys put it out so much? And I just want to open the door to like critiques of the games maybe, and what and or Ubisoft, right? So I know Brian has a lot to say. He's been waiting to talk about this one. Just if you have any, maybe these critiques turned you away from the franchise for a bit or whatever. So we'll go down the list again. Brian, Justice, Ian, Vic, and then I'll go last too. But what the problem, we work in the darkness of the light, but what are the darkness areas for this franchise?
Yeah. So the blessing and the curse of having a studio as big as Ubisoft is that there was that time where we had the yearly releases of main franchise Assassin's Creed games. And I want to say for at least like the first 3 to 4, they're relatively all right. People didn't complain about it too much. And, I think what helped was that Ezio as a character was just so good. Like the performance and like the story of like his entire journey as an assassin was so good that I think people maybe overlooked, maybe some cut corners every once in a while. And it wasn't until 3, which I find very fortunate because to this day, I think 3 is still in like my top 5 Assassin's Creed games. But you saw the cut corners, eventually where, they had bugs where missions just couldn't complete. You get soft locked in the later half of the game just because an executable wouldn't go off. And like, okay, well, I'm supposed to be chasing this guy after the Boston Tea Party, but it's like we can't complete it because he gets stuck somewhere. Or like all of our favorites, the what is it, the Ride of Midnight, or like the John Revere. It's like, Connor, go this way. No, Connor, go this way. And it's just like, where do you want me to fucking go? I don't understand. And then, and of course, like you start seeing the wear and tear of the franchise just because Ubisoft was going through a thing where Assassin's Creed was its moneymaker, and they got very comfortable in pumping out everything that they could do to make money. And it was even up until which game was it? I believe it was when they started doing the newer games, right? And they started going into that RP. Now this is just a me thing. I loved Origins. I thought Origins was a really fine told story. It's not everybody's cup of tea, which is fine. It's whatever. But I thought Origins was the perfect balance of the new that they were trying to go for, but it also kept to the good story crafting that Assassin's Creed was known for back then. And also, they had a really good cast of characters just to kind of play off of. And then for me, I started kind of going like, oh, it's like, I don't know how to feel about this anymore. It's when they started going into like the Odysseys and Valhallas, where it's like, okay, we're going to go full on into this RPG-ness, but we still want these original characters, but you can also choose the dialogue of the story and have it kind of go in the direction you want, but then also at the same time, we still want to have this A to B storyline, which for me didn't really work out too well because, like, let's just take Odyssey for example. I'm not gonna spoil anything, but Cassandra as a character is really cool. Like, I feel like her performance is really done well, but ironic that I liked her more in the stuff where you didn't get to choose her dialogue. Because I actually got to see what Cassandra was like and not what me as Cassandra was like. And I guess that's just my personal problem, just because I personally really love being taken on a story and not so much dictating the story as much. And I think for me, that's where it started getting muddled, because we're going from a big story-based game, and now people can't decide on, okay, well, the modern day stuff doesn't really matter anymore, but then they just added a new protagonist and they're trying to do something, but then there's some games when there's just no modern day stuff at all. I think Syndicate didn't even have like a modern day section. They had like the one little clip of like what's her face on the computer screen telling you something, and it's like, okay, going back to Jacob and Evie. It's like, all right, it's like cool, but I really hope, especially now that Ubisoft is like starting to dip back into like the Prince of Persias, and they tease that they're going to be going back to Splinter Cell, that they can take the moment like what they did with Valhalla and like took 2 years off at least, just to let their games breathe a little more and have people actually want an Assassin's Creed game instead of coming back to the yearly releases. Because we just had Mirage last year. It was a smaller game, but we're getting Shadows this year, which is like their bigger kind of release. So it's like, okay, well, I don't know. I feel like I rambled on a little bit, but you know, I've been holding into my chest.
Yeah.
Joel knows this. I just needed some release.
Let it out, Brian. Let it out.
So
I was like, don't worry about that, dude.
so Justice, I'll throw it on to you because I know you You probably have some opinions about the
I
franchise.
have very similar opinions, Brian, and I think that's kind of where my head's at with Ubisoft in total. And I might just say it. I might be too far gone. The well might be poisoned for me. I don't know what it's going to take to bring me back to playing Assassin's Creed, because multiple times I've revisited the ones that I do love. I continue to hit these same errors. Even recently, I bought the Ezio trilogy for super cheap on Steam to get it running on my Steam Deck. And Assassin's Creed 2, they block you out. They don't let you play because it doesn't work.
Really?
It only has like a Microsoft connection. I had to go in, find the file format, be able to swap it over so it starts going into Ubisoft Connect, their newest way to get in, not Uplay, their previous way. So yeah, it was some ache, got into that, started playing some of the other ones. I think I even mentioned to you guys a couple years ago, I bought the remastered version of Assassin's Creed 3 for PC.
Oh
Just
boy.
even completely
Oh boy.
ready to get into just like, I didn't need to have the best gaming experience. I was ready to revisit the story of Connor and his whole journey and just what that whole, oeuvre was. And man, that game a mess. God, what a terrible remaster. So
Yeah.
I've lost I have lost faith in Ubisoft. I'm not even just going to say it. I'm no qualifiers. I've lost faith in them. I don't know what's going to bring me back to the franchise.
So, Justice, I just want to butt in real quick because you mentioned the Assassin's Creed 3 remaster, and I'm with you there. That remaster was complete garbage. But you want to know what's crazy? So the console and PC remastered was an utter mess because they utterly made the game look horrible. But when, for some reason, like a few years ago, I saw that they released all of the older games on Switch. So I bought them like physical edition. And for some reason, the Assassin's Creed 3 remaster for the Switch is actually the same ROM as the original. Just up-resed a little bit. They didn't go in and like change all the assets and fuck around with it. So it's literally playing just a more just kind of like high fidelity version of the original 3. So it's so weird. I don't know why they made that decision for 3. It's so frustrating.
It just unfortunately becomes this, and as I'm kind of talked about, and I'll get into it a little bit more with you guys, and I want to hear your opinions about it and, the Ubisoft of it, but like, what is it that draws you to Assassin's Creed? Is it historical assassinations? Is it this historical stuff? Is it this modern day conspiracy that's kind of arcing back to the origins of humanity? Like, what is it that keeps bringing us back? And no one actually has an answer. No one at Ubisoft has an answer. It's just like kind of, I feel like a mess. And just even what we're talking about a little bit of, they don't know how they're releasing the stuff from time to time. We can talk about this with other franchises as well. And I think it's a lesson we keep learning a little bit. But that yearly cadence is really difficult to keep quality when you're just kind of making things that are $100 million plus $200 million plus scale, that have just such a huge teams of just multinational networks of people working together on this stuff. It's, I'm sure, yeah, it's a little bit different now, but I don't know what the selling point of Assassin's Creed is for me anymore, and I just don't know if I'm going to buy it. So I'll pass it on to the next speaker.
I mean, a lot of the opinions you guys share about Ubisoft, I have kind of similar ones, like with Game Freak and Pokemon and that whole franchise, because they have a lot of bugs in the games. The main driving point is they have a whole competitive scene, though, so you kind of have to upgrade or like go to the next game and keep like up to date with the meta and things like that. Whereas Assassin's Creed, there's none of that. So it's really more like how much of for me, it's how much of a history buff am I for this certain period of time. For me, like I tried number 3, but I'm not too big on like the American Revolutionary War. I mean, you hear about it in school all the time. You hear it, like, to me, it's kind of like not a topic that excites me. So like when I hit like any number of bugs in that, I was like, I'm done with this game. Like so I never got like super far into it, right? But Black Flag, I thought was super cool because of the whole pirate aspect and like the tie-ins it did with the whole Caribbean. Like you met all these famous pirates that may just be lore, legend, but the fact they were incorporated there from that historical time was really cool. Same with Unity, all the historical figures like Napoleon and things like that was very cool because it was during the French Revolution. And same with Syndicate, like you had the whole England Industrial Revolution, right? You got to see like all these different aspects or like things that aren't really touched upon probably in like areas in our lives that we aren't super either you're not super into it or whatever, or it's just like depending on like schooling, things like that. That's what kind of drives me to the franchise more, is these aspects of where is it taking place in time, right? Like to me, that's how I will like, oh, this looks kind of interesting and I haven't touched this franchise in a while, I'll go back to it, right? But you guys shared a lot of the same points that I have with like the bugginess and a lot of things they never actually return to, because they have games that people still play, like the Ezio trilogy, remasters of number 3, it's remasters. Black Flag, it's like it's port up to Xbox One, Unity, Syndicate, like all of these different games have have basically still fan bases that play them, and they haven't really done much to show them love. So for me, when I see that they're actually taking a little time in between games, I would rather have that, because it's some of the same struggles I have with like I said with Game Freak and Pokemon, where they kind of dump out different games in like more of a yearly cycle. It may not be like a main franchise game, but you get like their sub things like Legends and things like that, Mystery Dungeon, all these other little games in between, right? So it feels like the focus isn't entire more on what the actual main product would be, and that's what it feels like with Ubisoft, or felt like with Ubisoft for Assassin's Creed. It's like, hey, we need money, we got a fan base, let's just keep them fed and keep them going. And it's like what you said, Brian, letting the games kind of marinate a little bit is going to probably do them better in the long run, right? Because to be honest, with Mirage, I've heard like nothing really about Mirage other than, oh yeah, it goes back to the old style, it's cool. But everyone that I know that has played Valhalla has like spoken very highly of Valhalla, very highly of Odyssey. Origins, a lot of people were just kind of like, because it was such a change up from like what the previous game style was. But I feel like they did a really good job with that trilogy, or those series of games, that if they kind of like, okay, this is where we did good here, this is where we did good here, let's try to take the best of both worlds and put it into these new games. I feel like if the games going forward incorporated the old stuff as well as some new stuff, they'd have a really good franchise and kind of blow stuff out of the water. And probably bring back older players that were into the franchise, but it's time will tell, because at the end of the day, it's business decisions.
Right.
We've seen stuff with like just Bungie alone laying off like half their staff every week. Like we've seen it.
I took a month break.
No, yeah, but it's to that point. It's like there's a lot of business decisions being made right now that a lot of people are obviously out of control of. So it's time will tell. So I'm on the same page as Justice. As like, I'm not like totally poison in the water hole, but there's got to be something really big to draw me back or want to buy like the next, like another game in the franchise, right?
Yeah, I mean, we could always talk about all the critiques. Like, it goes back to like how we did with Star Wars. You can always critique the movies and praise the movies and stuff like that. With video games, it's I think it hits a little bit more home because we're gamers. So this is our game. This is the game that we own. This Star Wars is like movie franchise. Everyone has their own opinions. For video games, it's like we all kind of can agree to a consensus of what we like, what we dislike. We're gamers, man. Everyone knows what we like and stuff of gaming. I wrote down some stuff here because I don't want to lose my thoughts here. But with Brian, I agree with you with the critiques. With the whole storyline, Assassins 1 through 4, you were playing. It's like how the game is, where you were looking through the eyes. We were going into the Animus, and we're seeing the story retold. We're seeing the story through your ancestors or whatever, Abstergo, if you're following the storyline. You're seeing how it all played out. So you get more information. And now we have the newer games with Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla. Now you're choosing your dialogue. It's like, well, that kind of like you're rewriting history, I guess. You're choosing what you're saying, where it's like, no, this is how it played out in history. We're just watching the replay through an animus and of a character, and you just get to play along with it. So like that if we're following the lore of the Assassin's Creed, lore. So whenever it became RPG element stuff, it was like, okay, I can guess I can get on board with it, but I was more like, RPG elements. Like as you continue the story, you get new items and stuff like that. Now it's like now you have to grind so you can level up, and you can now level up your weapons. You can now level up, your character. You can get new abilities, level up your abilities. And I was like, okay, this would have been cool if it was not an Assassin's Creed franchise. If this was like something else, I would have been down with it. Because with Assassin's Creed, I'm used to like, you do missions. Once you get a certain act, oh, guess what? Now you get dual blades. Oh, cool. This is pretty cool. Now you can go and carry on. So, not like I got to go do 4 more missions because I want to level up my, my bow so I can have it do more assassin damage. So I can go do this fortress and stuff. It's like, that's a different type of game that I enjoy playing. Assassin's Creed has already established itself as this narrative of this storytelling of, we're going through what's Abstergo up to? What are they trying to do? What are the assassins trying to do to counteract that? What's going on? And so now it's taking me out of that storyline now with the newer games, with the RPG games. Not to say I don't like them, I love them, but now I'm more of like I'm trying to grind, and then whenever I'm doing a story, and then all of a sudden you get it pulled out of the animus, I'm like, oh crap, I forgot I was in an animus. Oh, whoops. Like okay, with
Got to be difficult because I mean, even so much of the stuff of Assassin's Creed, which was so technically great about it, was kind of like that Metroidvania. Almost like mechanical increase. You got better tools. It wasn't that you were leveling up. It's that you were getting better with the tools that you were given. It wasn't like, oh, I need to actually update. Like it felt like they had mechanical solutions to the game that helped the world expand a little bit more.
And it played with the story too, because it's like, oh, you couldn't reach this area before. Now Leonardo da Vinci came up with something. Now you can do this. Now you're like, oh, cool. Thank you. It played with the story and stuff. And so when it introduced RPG elements, I was like, is this really Assassin's Creed now? Or is this another like fantasy historical game? Just as with you with Ubisoft, I'm kind of getting there where it's like whenever a new game gets announced, I'm like, oh, this looks cool. Oh, it's from Ubisoft. Ooh, okay. Like I mean, we could probably talk this off camera, but Brian, Joe, I want to get your opinion on Outlaws. What's been going on with that, and
have not played it yet.
I've been seeing mixed reviews, I've been seeing things, and I'm like, Ubisoft doing Ubisoft things again. It's like I'm.
The last thing I heard, apparently the day one patch did help a lot, because a lot of stories we were hearing were people that got it early access and people who got review copies, which is before the like day one launch. Which it kind of sucks because now that we're in this era of day one launches having to have patches. It's like more unique to not have a patch on day one than it is to have one.
Like, do you remember when we had 360s and games came out day one and the game was just done? Like we didn't have to have a patch. You just played it. You just did it. Now we're having patches. Now we're having things. It's like, okay. But with Ubisoft, like I'm getting to the point where I'm just like, I'm just going to wait maybe like a year and a half to get the new latest game after it's been released and it's been patched up and it's been, fined up. I haven't jumped ship yet with Ubisoft because I'm a big Splinter Cell fan. I love Splinter Cell. Sam Fisher, one of my favorite characters. I love, like I said, stealth games are one of my favorites. That's why I love Assassin's Creed. But Tom Clancy, get your act right together. And even you can even compare with Splinter Cell and Assassin's Creed. You have the first 3 games of a Splinter Cell, which were amazing, which were awesome. Incorporated the stealth, using darkness to your as your advantage. And then now you have and Double Agent too, but now you have Blacklist and you have Convictions, where it's like a whole new mechanic where everything's much quicker, action paced, and you're like, oh, this is not the Splinter Cell I was used to playing with, 1 through 3. Now bring it over to Assassin's Creed. You have 1 through 4, and I think what the downfall was with Black Flag. After Black Flag, everyone loved the whole ship mechanics, everything. Now you start pumping out Rogue, start pumping out Liberation. You're like, okay, this is the same thing, just reskinned.
Yeah.
Different thing, and you're like, okay,
but with worse boat mechanics.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Everything just went start downhill because everyone's like, oh, we like the ship mechanic. Okay, cool. Let's dumb it down a bit. Like, no, like, and then you have this pattern. Like I said, you guys said like with the yearly releases where it's just kind of I enjoyed 1 through 3. Yeah, 3 was very buggy. I still have the original CDs that I play. I don't play them remastered because I'm not down with that.
You and me both, brother. You and me both.
I have Assassin's Creed 2. Revelations, Brotherhood 3, Black Flag, all on CDs. I don't have them on digital because I'm like, those are the originals. I keep the integrity of that. But yeah, Ubisoft just has a tendency of kind of destroying some things that we love sometimes with, and so, which is sad. Not to say I won't play the games. I still love the Assassin's Creed franchise, and I love the whole Desmond arc. 1 through 3 was cool. I thought it ended at 3. I was like, all right, we're done. That was a good close off. And then they brought in 4 and 5, and I was like, oh, okay, we're still going. But okay, let's see what the story. I'm curious what the storyline is. But my critique, yeah, would be just with the RPG ones, with Origins and Odyssey and Valhalla. I'm not saying I'm enjoying them. I'm enjoying them, but it's like less of story, more RPG, more grinding, more leveling up, more like less of like why are we Alexios? Why are we the Magi? I forgot the character's name in Origins. But,
Bayek.
Bayek of
Bayek,
Siwa.
yes, yeah, Bayek, yeah. Why are we Bayek? Why are we Alexios? What's going on? What are we trying to figure out? And that's like little compared to like with the original one. So it's like we're trying to figure out what's Abstergo doing, what are they trying to get. We're going through this journey, but how do they interact with the piece of Eden, or what's going on with the civilization that was here before us, this whole like mystery of what's going on. I guess it all comes down with Ubisoft kind of changing directions. So but I agree with you guys with your critiques and stuff like that. And then bring back co-op play, man. Unity had that cool co-op mode where you can do your missions with like your friends.
Ew.
Yeah,
That was so cool.
That was super fun for me in Unity. And then it's also like the one thing I miss out of these recent games that Brian kind of touched on is there's no real connection to the real world. Because at least through 1 through 4, you had the connection to Desmond, right? Like,
Yeah, right.
And then you're sitting here wondering now from 5 onward, like, okay, who is this an actual ancestor of? So I remember in 4, they said, like, as you're walking around, like, oh yeah, we're accessing these memories through a generous donation of Desmond Miles, like DNA or something like that.
Yeah.
Which I'm thinking, like, dude, when this dude asleep and they just shaved his head the whole time, like when he was in jail, like it's just like boiling down.
I think they showed you his corpse. They were just like literally pulling his DNA out of his body.
Yeah. And that was like when they showed that, it was kind of like, oh shit, okay. So they really got him.
I thought it was cool because it's like that. Okay, that mechanic was like, all right, I guess that you got to figure out how to get the DNA. But it's like we're creating a video game, a pirate video game. You're like, all right, you're playing a game within a game, which is pretty cool. Creating a game, but yeah, you still had that small connection with Desmond still because it's like that's his ancestors. Now further on, it's like you don't even have a character. You're just like the initiate, or you're just like we're here solving this for the assassins. You're like, okay, right. I don't have this connection with like
Well, that's kind of even the stuff we're still talking about, the Ubisoft in the room of like, hey, come, we're at this company where we're rebuilding historical great enterprises that's going to be so entertaining. You're going to love it. And this is the best company to work for. You're going to love walking around this office and exploring this company. There's no reason to ever suspect that this company's evil. And it's like, you guys made 4 games already about how big companies are evil, controlling these people's memories. Like, what's going on
here? Yep, exactly.
But video games.
Yeah.
Don't you want to be a pirate? But just like before, sorry to cut you off, Joel. Just I had one more thought. It's just interesting to what Ian was saying, how up until arguably 4, because at least with 4, it was still the DNA of Desmond. Because it's just like, okay, well, we had Connor, now we're going to go see his grandfather, who was just like this cool ass pirate. In like the West Indies, and so it's like, okay,
well, that was a cool reveal at the very end where you're like, oh snap,
it's like, oh yeah,
how that ties in with 3.
But then basically from Unity onward, it's just like, okay, we've developed a technology just to be able to read anybody's DNA regardless of if they're actually in the building or not, or in the Animus or not. It's like you will survey this person's DNA to find any ancestors that have ties to and what I was hopeful for when Origins came out is that they finally gave us a new modern day protagonist in Layla, where she was like this Abstergo researcher for the Animus, and she went to find the tombs of Bayek and Aya. And it's like, okay, well, they're able to like basically jack into like their skeletons and get like DNA somehow from that. It's like, all right, yeah, I'll buy it. At least like we have a face now, instead of being this first person just like robot person that has no
Initiate.
name.
Yeah.
It's your history.
And then, but it just seems like, at least from like what articles about like the new game coming out this year, Shadows, is that it's up in the air whether or not modern day is going to be involved again. So it's like, okay, well, you started building up this new modern day story, and it seems like they had a direction, but now that's like, where are we going with this? There's no real answer. So yeah, I don't know. It's just an interesting ride that they're gonna try to take us on.
Yeah. It's a story they dropped off. Like with Team 1 and all, it's like the modern day, it's like there's this big war coming between Abstergo and the Assassins. There's a big war coming. And then I'm like, my God, this war's been coming for like the past like 6 games. Like what's this thing going to happen? When are they fighting and stuff like that? And then now that you're mentioning, if they're gonna get rid of that whole modern thing, it's like, okay, so what happened then? Like, what's going on? Like, what's the purpose of the why are we in this past? The past is Abstergo's trying to get something. They're trying to find out where this piece of Eden is or where this certain item is to have the upper hand against the Assassins. We're trying to stop them. It's a race of time. But now it's like, oh, we're not going to do that no more. In Shadows, it's like, okay, so are we just playing just like another Sekiro? You know, what's going on? Like, what are we going to do here? But yeah. Sorry about the joke.
It's a clone of Desmond. Watch out, you know.
Yeah, it's his twin brother.
Yeah, they just said, "Fuck it, we're gonna clone him, and we're gonna go with that."
And his name will be Dom Des.
Dom Des.
They're like, we tried doing the war in the movie theaters, but Eric Fassbender couldn't get the character across. Like,
oh man, I don't remember that movie.
Speaking of, I wanted to go to that dangerous territory of the movie. For those who forgot, yes, they made an Assassin's Creed movie. It's really bad. The best part was the Easter egg of the assassins at the end, so that was cool. But yeah, you guys, I don't need to echo what you guys already said. It was some great stuff, great critiques. Thank you, Brian, for bringing up like what our focus is now with Layla, which is cool, but also, I don't want to spoil it for Vic, but there's someone else on the seat, and like, how do they tie in to what comes in next? So I'm mad curious too. But that real world connection and the meta of, like you guys said, the gaming, the corporations, all that, it's good stuff. But they do feel a little lost. Especially, I just recently played Valhalla and Mirage. It's like, where are we going? What is the direction? It's cool. I like it. Like the well isn't poisoned for me yet, but also I'm like, again, where are we going? I will say, one of my critiques is actually just one of the games. I mean, it did come out kind of during the pandemic. It gave us more to do. But Valhalla, as much as I love the RPG system, again, it's not really stealthy or just combat based. It did
Not
come
at
out,
all.
During the pandemic. But it's so much bloat. I think that's what makes Mirage kind of nice. It's done when you're done. There's like, I was telling Brian, there's like 3 or 4 hours in that game we didn't need. Like, it's just literally the same thing over and over and over again. And it might be because they were like pumping other things, working other games.
Right.
And, another critique is Ubisoft, Assassin's Creed adjacent is Skull and Bones, man. Like, that was that thing in production hell. Like, you guys like pirates? You guys said it, right? We're making a game about the pirates again. And it's like, you're not even a pirate. You're in the boat.
The spiritual successor to Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag.
Yeah, it's just, we did the beta, and I was just like, this is cool, but what else is there? Like it just doesn't make me excited about what 4 was, and I hold that game, close to my heart. It was a lot of fun, and I quoted it earlier. We would be heroes if it wasn't for gold. Thanks, Blackbeard. That's great. But now it's like, what are you doing, Ubisoft? It's
Exactly.
I can critique them all day, but hopefully the next thing will be cool. Again, for me also, to kind of paint a picture, I play these games late. I always like borrow it, or someone has it ready to go. I can get to it late, and I still enjoy it. It's still fun. I think Mirage was the closest thing I've played to release. Thanks, Brian. Let me borrow it.
There you go.
Shadows is cool. We finally are going to Japan. That's, I think, what people wanted for a while. I still don't know if I'll get it day one, just because I played Unity late, but I know what Unity was that first week. Like,
and it wouldn't surprise you that Shadows is the same thing. Like,
exactly. And the Ubisoft's like, egregious price tag with it too.
Oh my
That's the
gosh.
thing. They've always been like gouging. Like I get it, it's a super special edition with statues and stuff, but yeah, this is basically almost paying for a new console. Like fuck,
Yeah.
Like,
How much was Outlaws? Like $120 for like pre-release or something like that for Outlaws?
yeah,
To get like
yeah.
the season pass plus like the Job
Yeah.
of the Hut
Yeah, I was
mission
like,
pack.
Yeah.
And
hey, you're right, Joe. I'm like, am I buying a new Xbox or what's going on here with this?
Yeah,
What-
practices
so-
are very transparent in what they want. It's sad. Like we just want to play your game, have stuff ready to go day of, right? Is that too much to ask for?
And-
I guess
Exactly.
it is.
and
Yeah.
they're
Go
never
ahead, Brian. You were saying
consistent
something.
about it.
And
'Cause I
personally,
was-
for me, I was gonna say personally for me, if there's like a digital edition, it should be cheaper than like a physical copy because they
Mhm.
price them the same way. I mean, if you're getting like a file to download to your Xbox, I don't see why it should cost $60 when maybe you could slash it to 30 and still get the same,
Mhm.
like probably more downloads out of it to cover your overhead of what you're trying to cover.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I think it's funny. Well, not funny, but because Sega has this kind of problem too, as far as their release editions. So I've complained to this to Joel plenty of times in the past few months. As far as for Assassin's Creed games goes, I like to collect physical just because I've been collecting them since 2008. I like to keep them, for as long as I can. And the past few years, they've been going through like these collector's editions, or just like, hey, if you get the gold edition or you get the ultimate edition, it comes with the steelbook. And I'm a sucker for steelbooks. I've professed that plenty of times on this podcast. And it's like, okay, you pay like 110, and like you get maybe one extra mission and you get steelbook. Cool. The one thing I hate about what they're doing for Shadows is, one, their secondary version, like the step up from basic gold edition. For some reason this year it's only physical. You can't buy it digital. The ultimate edition, I believe, is only digital. And that's like $130, and it only comes with like the season pass, maybe some special unlocks or like early access stuff. And the only way to get like the steelbook or anything else special is if you buy their $300 physical box that I believe, if I can be corrected if I'm wrong, maybe has a physical game. And that's another thing. A lot of collector's editions now don't have physical games in them anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think is bullshit. So
You're paying the same price for a physical copy just to get a bunch of statues and collectibles, but then they're like, hey, here's your card for your game, like.
Yeah, it's just like, what are we doing here? Like, just give me what I need, and not like all this extravagant stuff. Like, if that's like the one thing that I've always thought was weird with Ubisoft, is that their whole marketing is so bananas backwards, because they've had two versions of a merchandise store. Both of them are very difficult to kind of look through, and they're never updated properly. They never have the proper information that you need for like clothing merchandise or descriptions on like what you're actually getting in your purchases. And they just never update the shit. Like all the stuff that comes in these like collector's editions, I was like, oh, you get this cool little art book, you get like this nice statue, and you get all these little doodads that cool at the time, but they're going to be either on your shelf collecting dust, or they're going to be in a box somewhere. It's like, why not spend the effort to actually like upgrade your merchandise store and have something people are excited about? Because God, I can't remember the last time I've bought outside of like video game stuff, like any merchandise of Ubisoft, because they just don't market their shit well enough anymore. And it's like, I feel like they'd be doing
kind of all right, my next question
go for it.
is and I think it kind of ties into it a bit, a little of the merchandising, a little bit of the marketing, a little bit of how they're selling themselves, particularly this franchise and what they're marketing it. But I'm gonna ask you this question I just wrote down of, who do you guys think is the face of Assassin's Creed, and why is it Arno?
I
Ooh.
I think he just had the most diverse storyline. Like he had an interesting start. Like his family gets murdered by all the Templars, and then the Templars are like, "Oh hey, this kid was an assassin's kid. Let's bring him into the fold and try to convert him." And then like he gets old enough, finds out, "Hey, this dude killed my whole family. The fuck!" Like he basically kept me like a little like livestock animal to try and flip me to the other side. So for this whole bit, like, and the girl he's in love with is a Templar. So this whole bit is
Okay.
like he started.
So it's more than anything like baked into him more than like any other kind
Yeah,
of character. Almost like, for lack of a better term, like Kylo Ren, where it's just like this guy is
yeah,
living, breathing Star Wars. He's Han Solo, he's Leia, he's Luke, he's everything. But in this new manifest, Arno is all their kind of ideas that they
Mhm.
want to put into like a mascot.
and
Yeah.
then it's
And-
like you think about Ezio previously. Like Ezio just had the longevity of being a face for things, and just had like a cool like his. I'd say his costume is the most iconic of like everybody's. But in terms of characters, I think like Arno would be like the best one, especially for like all these games that have been going forward. Just because he's had such this interesting like story and background that you kind of relate to. You can find a lot of points to relate to the character in that aspect, um, versus like other characters like in the previous in previous iterations, and like
Mhm.
probably a little further. But since since I haven't played a lot of the newer ones, I can't really say on that.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I agree. Like I think Arno's. I think it's battle between Arno and Ezio, right? They both have tragic backstories. Both families are murdered. Ezio sees his brothers and dad hanged, by the Pope. And yeah, you see Arno's family get murdered as well by Templars. So it's like they're both neck and neck. I think they're both the good faces of the franchise. And their covers look pretty sick on the game. But we critiqued a lot about Assassin's Creed, but something I liked about Assassin's Creed storyline was that if you notice that whenever you beat the game, it would like tease towards the next game a little bit. Like I don't know, with 1 and 2 not really, but with like with 3 it teased a little bit of with 4 it teased like this is the prequel, you got the reveal. But if you guys played Rogue with Shane,
Yes. That was the biggest twist. That was
Yeah.
the biggest twist.
at the end it teases with at the end of Rogue is the beginning of Unity.
Yep.
When you go off and kill that French guy, you in Rogue in Unity, you're that kid that like sees that Shane go murder your dad, and you're like, oh snap, that's how it ties in. So like I like how the ties ins with those games.
Yep.
For me, that was like bigger than finding out that in 3, when you're playing as Hatham for like the first hour,
Oh yeah,
you're
a
actually
Templar the
playing
whole
a
time?
Templar the whole
Yeah.
time.
Yep.
But no, because I had an interesting experience with that because I played Unity first.
Mhm.
And then I went back to Rogue.
Mhm.
And so going back and playing Rogue and playing that final part of the game where you're going through like that mansion party, and then you see these 2 kids playing, I was like, is that fucking Arno?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh no, I'm the one that's going to kill his dad. Holy
Yeah.
fuck. Okay.
Yep. That was such
And-
a great. Yeah, that was beautiful storytelling. Like I said, that's how they with the Assassin's Creed early on franchises, they had a beautiful story to tell. Great ties in with all the other games. Now the RPG ones are like, you're Layla. All right, figure stuff out. Go level up. And so,
Yeah.
but yeah, back to your question. About your question, Justice. Yeah, I think Arno and Ezio are the 2 main contenders of the faces of the franchise. They're the ones that there's a reason why in the RPG games you can have Ezio's costume. You can wear, in Odyssey, you can wear his suit. And
He's
so,
the guy.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's him. That he is him. And then Arno has his story. Yeah, you're literally starting a French Revolution or during the French Revolution. So, but yeah.
So when I think about this question you asked, Justice, I had to think for a good second, where Assassin's Creed has been out long enough where there is literally generations of players. Because you look at them in chunks, it's like, okay, you have let's just say the 1 through Revelations. It is all one big chunk because it arguably ends with Altair and Ezio at the end of Revelations. and then you have the I guess a lot of them call like the Americas like trilogy, where it's like it's Connor, it's it's Connor, Edward. Thank you. I kept getting stuck on Kenway. Edward, and then Shay as like the Americas like trilogy, and then you had Arno, Jacob, and Evie as like kind of like their own small little section in like the Assassin's Creed history. And it's kind of interesting for both you, Ian and Vic, talking about how Arno is like this face, because I didn't like think about it at first, because he is kind of like that generation's Ezio. And just like how they're similar in the way, but then they're also starting to take the aspect of what Rogue was and being like, hey, there's shitty people in the Assassin's Order at this time, because they kept brushing him off and being like, hey, you know, it's like, we understand how you're feeling, but like, we know what we're doing. We are the master rank assassins here. Just, you know, calm down. It's like, we don't need to do anything. They're very neutral.
Yeah.
In their stance. And so I feel like that, especially at the time of its release, and also just like the setting of being like the French Revolution, it hit home the more and more you started playing into it. Because I don't know if you guys felt this way at first too, but when you're introduced to Arno, and it's like, oh, he's just like a baby Ezio.
Yeah.
You're like rich boy. He gets, you know, his family gets torn apart, and then yeah. But then he actually does like grow into his own, like Ezio does, except Ezio had that like trilogy unto himself, just to grow and change throughout, you know, all of the 2 sequels. So like Ezio is the face of the franchise even to this day, regardless if people play or not, because he is like the one that keeps showing up, whether it's like costumes for different games or they use him for promotional stuff. I was showing Joel last week. I am a big wrestling fan. There's this wrestler called Will Ospreay. He loves Assassin's Creed.
Yes, he does.
Nice.
I brushed past him a few years ago at like an indie show real quick, and like he loves fucking Assassin's Creed. His finishing move is called the Hidden Blade. For Christ's sakes. And like he has like these big cloaks that he comes out in, and the past year he's had the opportunity to be sponsored by Ubisoft.
Oh, nice.
And the most recent show that he did this past month, they sponsored him for Assassin's Creed Shadows. And to celebrate, you know, the whole occasion, they actually had Roger Craig Smith do a monologue as Ezio to introduce him for his entrance.
That's
and
so cool.
I feel like they do that because they know Ezio is like the cornerstone as far as like the entire franchise is concerned, because that's when everybody started really paying attention to Assassin's Creed. But
hey, Brian,
like
I totally agree. Let's jump back to Ian. Actually has to go. His little man needs him. So again, just thanks again for joining, Ian. Loved your insight. We'll continue this discussion. We'll probably have him back for later. There's definitely a Pokemon we need to do, and we know you're a big Pokemon.
Yeah.
So,
I want to hear
again,
those
thanks for joining
critiques.
us. Yeah.
I got a lot.
Love the insight. Any last things or plugs before you go?
I know. Thank you guys. Make sure to give a follow to United We Nerd. These guys are awesome. Shout out to Vic. Make sure to follow him and his podcast. Thank you. Nice having a panel with you guys, as well as you, Justice. Really loved your thoughts, discussions on the whole franchise. But yeah, definitely down for next time. I gotta go run and go take care of little dude real quick.
Dad duties. Yep.
Yeah, no
dad
problem.
Duties.
And dad duties.
Family.
So
Yeah.
Take care of your little Arno.
Yeah. There you go.
yeah, all right. Yeah, very true. Thank you guys. Love to be on it again.
Thanks for hanging out.
Thanks for having us. Thanks for joining us. All right. Sorry about that, Brian. He really needed to go. But yeah,
no worries.
To go back to where we were, Brian was talking about Will Ospreay. He loves the franchise, and he even had Roger Craig Smith do an intro as Ezio with the voice line, which was really cool. But go ahead, Brian. Go back. Just bring.
Well, yeah, but that's just like the point I was like bringing up. It's like Ezio is like that guy.
Mm-hmm.
Like everybody can have what they consider as their face just because of how generational this franchise has become.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But Ezio is that guy that you can look at and be like, that's Assassin's Creed.
Mm-hmm.
Or like you can ask a lot of people, it's like, okay, like when you think of Assassin's Creed, who are like the first two Assassins you think of? And Ezio will usually be in that conversation all the time.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
My boy, Altair not getting any love, man.
hey, I'll give him credit.
I was going to
like,
get to that. I was letting him talk about Ezio for 10 minutes, and then I was going to come in.
But I'll give him credit though, because Revelations did so much for Altair's character.
They did, yeah.
Because in Assassin's Creed 1, like they didn't think that this was going to be a franchise. That this was originally a spin-off of Prince of Persia.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they didn't think that this was going to be a franchise. They're like, okay, we'll just, pump in these assets here. It's like, not minimum effort, but it's like we're just going to pump this in. Because when you look at Altair in the first game, he's just Desmond.
Yeah,
like his face is just Desmond.
Yeah,
but then once you get into Revelations, like, no, we need to make Altair, and so he has like more of an identity, and you get to see a lot of his backstory post one, which is why I feel like it's such a shame that Revelations is kind of like that. It's the bookend to Ezio's franchise.
Yeah.
But like the villains aren't that memorable. The mechanics are okay. Like the tower defense thing was like a weird entry into that game that kind of was like a hit or miss. But the one thing that was like very intriguing is getting those memory discs and seeing what happened to Altair, because we had like a spin-off game for like the Nintendo DS for Altair, and that was it.
Oh yeah.
We didn't get to see Altair for years. And like that little tiny glimpse at the beginning of 2. So it's kind of just sad because Altair could have been like the guy, but obviously Ezio is just
overshadowed him.
Exudes that charisma.
Yep.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I totally agree. I'm surprised you guys chose Arno, but again, like generationally, maybe that's what it is.
I didn't choose Arno. I just like.
What was your choice?
There's a lot of merchandise, but please, Joel, continue. I just wanted to say there's so much Arno merchandise.
Yeah,
there is.
They did dump out a lot.
For sure. I want to hear what you have to say too. But yeah, I feel like for sure it's without a doubt Ezio, or was. I think Altair at first, when they started realizing, like, oh, this is popular, this is cool. I when 2 came out with Ezio, I didn't actually expect to see Altair again. So that was cool. We saw him again. But I think for the first 2, it's for sure Ezio and Altair. And we're talking about Revelations. I don't remember it being wonky, but I'm summarizing what Brian said quickly. It's not wonky or anything.
Not so much wonky. It's just like a lot of the characters were forgetable.
Yeah. But I will say for me, Revelations,
except for
like,
Yusef. Yusef was a badass.
Yeah, the story-wise, Revelations for me was like I was like, holy shit, games could be this fucking good. Like it kicked it off, and except for I was sorry, I confused it with 2 with that stupid ledge with Altair. But in Revelations, you go back to Altair the first, which I thought was amazing, and it just was a good time. And I think for me, solidified like Ezio is the man with Altair, and the whole like I'll just sit down for a while. They're there together at some point, even if it's in life and death. It was really cool, and not many memorable villains like Brian was saying. The one guy you think you kill and he just gets back up and laughs. That shit shook me. I was like, what? He's not dead? I have to kick his ass again? Revelations with Ezio, it was just, a good bookend. And I think for sure, like, it's Ezio. It's always Ezio. And to the point, it annoys me. I'm like, there are more than Ezio now, you know? Like, I just like, but he is the face, at least for me, having played it since 1. But yeah, I think the others are great, but they haven't used them as a flagship. And maybe that's part of the problem too. Not that they should. They have a lot to choose and diversify from. But I think, it's like we're hearkening back to Ezio. It's like, but his ship has kind of sailed on, but there are hints of what he's done in the newer games too. Is of course they want to, pay tribute to like this character that was loved and did a lot for the franchise. So but I do like seeing all the love for Arno now. Like for sure Unity was like kind of like it was low, right?
Mhm.
But people are like the newfound love is coming up for it, which I appreciate. But ooh,
He's like
Arno,
the
face,
prequel
ooh.
trilogy.
Yeah. The face though, I mean, merchandise wise, yeah. But ooh, I mean, there's a lot to be relatable, like you guys said. But yeah. All right, Justice, what are your thoughts? You brought up the question before I have another question for you guys.
No,
Lay it
that's
on
pretty
us.
much it. I love Ezio. I replayed AC2 a couple weeks ago, as I was mentioning. And it just is it is start to finish. You literally begin the story with him as like a little baby, and then like you play 6 chapters. There's a part where Desmond runs around for 5 minutes, and you get back in the Animus, and then you go to the end of the game, and then it's Desmond again for a couple minutes, and like, oh right, this is all Ezio. There's really not that much modern day stuff. There's a holding pattern for them to put more stuff in later, but then they're like, oh man, Ezio's so cool. So yeah, it's Ezio. He's my favorite. He's one of my favorite video game characters ever. I do just kind of want to kind of just call that attention to. Again, you guys did answer it a little bit for me as well. Why Arno would be such a great face for the franchise, and it's because the French. He's the French Ubisoft character. But yeah, he's baked into
We
the
did that a while
franchise.
ago.
They can pile him into stuff. I think maybe also a little bit they probably overproduced a little bit of Arno merchandise, so I think they're still putting that on stuff. But yeah, it's also hard to figure out other protagonists that are interesting. I haven't done like the newer ones. The last one I played was Syndicate, which I do like. They did a bit where they tried to kind of make Jacob and Evie have their own distinct differences. But there is one point in that game where Jacob is like, "Oh, I'm angry at you, Evie," and Evie's like, "Oh, I'm angry at you, Jacob. We should not be assassins anymore, or should not be a team." And then 5 minutes later, they're like, "I'm sorry I was angry at you, Jacob. Well, I'm sorry I was angry at you, Evie. We should be a assassin team again." So it's just, it's. I think there's something there, but clearly it's just not fully baked. So, yeah, I think Ezio continues to be their or goddamn Connor, but we've all just stepped over. Like I just mentioned, had
Yeah.
such an incredible story, and just this idea of an assassin that has to kind of give up his identity to protect the freedom and liberty of the greater good, and what that cost him, and just the overarching story. It really is beautiful, and that's why it's again such a bummer that I got remastered and it is hot garbage. And I was like, I don't even need the game to be that good playable. I just want it for the vibes, and still, you're really not even hitting my vibes.
Killing the vibe for sure.
But yeah.
Great points. Yeah, our boy Connor's been through a lot, and we mentioned. I just want before we go to the next question. Shay and his connection to Arno. I proposed this to Brian. Like, you should go back. It should be Arno looks for Shay, and Connor helps him. It should be like a showdown with those
I want
three.
Connor to be in a game so fucking bad,
Bring
dude.
Aveline too. Bring them all. Let's have that fucking master assassin showdown. Whatever tricks and turns and betrayals. I think that'd be cool. I think because those characters deserve that. Ezio, as much as I love that stuff, he got fucking 4 games plus, right? I mean, or maybe 3, not 4, but it feels like 4. But
and an animated movie.
Yeah. I just feel like at the very least they deserve one more go if Ezio did. And because to me they were that impactful, right? I was like, their stories were great.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's, I guess, to just kind of put those timelines together. Did they actually specify when Shadows would take place? Because it could take place in the late 1700s.
I got the wiki open right here.
With Arno and kind of that stuff, right? Because I
let me
mean, that
look
whole
up.
era would be 1600-ish to like 1850s. So could they have an assassin come from Japan, and then you get like an Avengers of like late 18th century assassins hunting down Shay?
it'd be pretty cool.
Maybe.
I thought that was gonna be the storyline for Unity. Was that the big boss villain at the end was Shay? Because you find out like, oh, you killed Shay. I thought that was gonna be like I thought that would have been cool if that was like the reveal at the end where it's like the Master Templar that was behind everything all was Shay, and you're like, oh, Sab, but
Shay's in Japan. Is Shay like one of the kind of like Blue-Eyed Samurai, one of those kind of horrific
true.
imperial importers that's kind of really trying to undermine Imperial Japan?
Maybe.
True.
While Brian's looking up that historical stuff, I wanted to ask you guys because, there's been a debate about it. The historical accuracy of Assassin's Creed. That kind of never bothered me. It's a hot topic now. You fight the fucking Pope, whatever. It's gone kind of, for lack of a better explanation, I'm gonna say off the deep end, which I like though. Origins, I think, takes it, at least in my memory, the farthest. Like, you fucking fight Anubis, a giant serpent and stuff. Other gods help you, and same for Odyssey, and in Valhalla too. It goes like super mythical, and people say it ruins my realism, but I think for me, we were wondering, like, what are they going to do next? I think this was a good move. Like, let's go more mythical. Let's fight these god creatures, and they even tie in like how they exist in Odyssey somewhat. So I'm just wondering, like, if you guys want more the mystical or realistic or the blend of both, or if the mythical bothers you. Like, for me, it doesn't. I mean, again, like, it's like, oh, it bothers me, we fight a god, and then someone's like, yeah, we fought the Pope. Come on now. Like, it's is it really that accurate? I mean, I do like seeing historical characters. That was cool, but just want to hear what your guys' thoughts were. We could go Justice Vic, then Brian, and then me.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess I already said.
I like, people do like to throw out that Pope criticism, and that's, like I said, AC2 is one of my favorite games ever. I replayed it pretty recently, and I'm still like even justifying to myself. I'm like, no, it's the emotional arc of it. It's the intensity that you're feeling. Technically, yes, you are Ezio and his prime assassin fighting a 55-year-old Pope. That shouldn't really be that hard of a fight, right? But also Ezio then pulls out his own piece of Eden, and it's like, it's not a lot of tension as far as final boss fights go, I will admit. It's no Cesare Borgia, which is a much more intricate fight. And so, yeah, I get that. It's kind of similarly, I wrote down this idea, so probably wanted to pose it to you, but this is kind of, I think, what we're talking about very similarly. Do we want Assassin's Creed to be more campy, or do we like the more serious parts of it? And as I'm kind of exploring some of these ideas and going back on it, I think campiness is the answer. I think you do kind of have to lean into more of that. Even the stuff I am thinking about a little bit more with, like Syndicate, I'm like, yeah, no, their base is a like moving train on the train tracks in like Victorian London. Like, guys, they have like grapple hooks out of their arms. Like, you kind of have to admit that this is like Sherlock Holmes, Guy Ritchie level stuff. We kind of have to admit that this is Van Helsing level of like, what's going to make this fun is like the full pivot and understanding of that kind of stuff versus trying to, I guess, to do these serious things, because it is, as you mentioned, unfortunately, I think, some of the historical stuff eventually gets Disneyfied anyways. It's kind of, to me, laughable that you're spending some time on the back of Paul Revere's horse as he's riding around with you. Or just like, as I'm saying, as much as I think it's funny, it's like, oh, you just run into Charles Dickens at the pub and he's like, I want to buy this guy a drink. Or, it's very much like Forrest Gump level of like assassins throughout history. And I think you kind of have to, if you're going to keep getting it interesting, or kind of even just broadening out this bigger, broader idea. And they have already said it, there's this ancient civilization that built all this crazy technology. You can kind of pull just about any story you need from gods were ancient peoples that built, reality breaking devices or whatever. So, I think you kind of ultimately have to lean more into the camp. And if you're just going to kind of and that's, I think, what we talked about with the movie a little bit too, it's a little too self-serious. You're going to need, some of the best parts are like, two Italian guys, Ezio and Leonardo da Vinci, being like, hey, brother, come check out, I built you this new fangled device that shoots poison out of its dart. Why would you need to have a poison gun? I don't know, but I built it for you. And so, like, I think, it needs to be a little bit more loose and less realistic for it to feel like it's going to work.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. I mean, the first 3 games, you have that ancient civilization, like aliens, pretty much, or the gods that created, and you have this. So it's like, if we've already accepted that, okay, so we're gonna accept that there's, Greek mythology and Norse gods like this. So it's like we've already agreed to the fact that the piece of Eden is some magical technological advancement that we don't know about, that that Sergo's trying to get. And so yeah, I don't mind, you know, if I have to fight a Minotaur, okay, that's fine, whatever. That's it's not the most craziest thing I've ever seen or fought, you know, especially in Origins. Yeah,
That's
I
a
fought
fun
like
fight.
yeah, and like fighting the gods in Origins, you know, fighting those big beasts that you do like in the rifts, the Abstergo rifts or whatever the
Yeah.
glitches. I mean, I was just like I wasn't like, oh, what is this? This is not accurate. I was just like, okay, cool. And then with 3,
Right?
yeah, I was like, all right, cool. All right, another boss fight. Let's go. And with 3, yeah, like with the it's funny with when I was playing replaying Assassin's Creed 3, it's when the big old hype of Hamilton was out.
Oh
And
yeah.
so my wife was all super into Hamilton, watching it, and I was like, and then whenever Hamilton they showed Charles Lee out, I was like, oh, Connor kills him. Connor kills him. Not Hamilton. Connor kills Charles Lee. And she was like, no, it's not. That's not happening. I guess that's what happens, right? Connor came. He got his revenge. He wanted to kill. And I was like, this is the real accuracy. And so, yeah. So
No country for old men style.
yeah, exactly. So I was just like, saying, ain't no Hamilton up in here. Like, this is Connor's story right here, fighting the revolution with George Washington. So like, so it was fun playing with that. But yeah, going back to the question, I mean, yeah, if we have Greek mythology and Norse mythology, it's not like what is this? What direction are they going? Like, no, like you've known this from the beginning of Assassin's Creed 1 and 2. You know, they even broke the fourth wall in Revelation, where Ezio's like, Desmond, I don't know who you are, but I know I'm not in charge of this life. So it's like there's nothing new. Like, add more. Let's get some more stuff. Bring in Kratos. I don't care. Let's see what's going on.
God.
That'd be crazy.
Ezio's fucking dead.
Yeah, oh yeah. Kratos comes in, yeah. Super dead.
So before I answer, I just wanted to give you my findings about dates and whatnot. So Shadows is going to be spanning a big period of time, but Ubisoft said that it will begin in 1579 Japan.
Oh, Jesus.
And just like kind of skimming through the other games, the closest game or the closest like assassin in that time period that's close to that is Xiao Yun from Assassin's Creed Chronicles China, which takes place in 1526. So there's not really
That's
a
still
lot of
pretty
connective tissue.
distant.
Yeah.
No, it sounds like that date is like literally kind of the beginnings of isolationist Japan. So it is like maybe they're trying to do a little bit broad storytelling of like maybe the shogunate and just kind of how that all goes. But yeah, I guess that's not like my idea, where like maybe you're having someone who's a couple generations into isolated Japan, and then maybe they can break out, maybe they get out, maybe they become an assassin, maybe there's some sort of interlink between Western and Eastern assassins a little bit. They find some sort of connection.
Maybe.
But I don't know.
I don't know. So Joel, what was the question?
Mythical versus real, does it bother you? Do you have a favorite? I just want to point out also fighting the Medusa in Odyssey was something else. But yeah, just where do you stand on it? I know there's some discourse online, but Vic brought up a good point. Like, we've already been like talking to fucking aliens. What's the issue?
Yeah.
Right.
Here and there. So yeah.
I mean, even though that there are fictional character or non-fictional characters that get brought into this, because it's still a story through time and space, pretty much.
Yeah.
The mystical portion's always been there. Like with the first civilization, the Isu, that's just like a mindfuck of its own, where it's like you have these beings of people that created all of these items that we've been hunting for decades at this point, like a decade and a half at this point. And like the people of today are just like the remnants of that era that are trying to discover and figure out what these items do. And of course, there are people that are going to try to use those for their benefit, as we've seen before with like the Cesare Borgias and I don't remember the name of the person from Unity, but like there's so many people that will try to take that and use it as one of their own. And we'll even go to like Origins and Odyssey and like the like, since this shot way back into the past, there's no understanding of what even these things are. But us, the players, will look at it. It's like, okay, well, there's that. You fight one of the Egyptian gods. Like, let's say, for example, like Anubis, like will pop up, and it's like, oh shit, that's Anubis. Or once you beat him, it's like, oh, this was an apple of Eden, like manifesting this ancient, like Egyptian god. Where of course back then everybody's supposed to be like, oh, it's the god's work. Where it's like, well, no, it's the technology of a bygone like race of people that is just manifesting in this era that they show up in. It's like the same for Odyssey. Like a lot of the beasts and creatures that you'll encounter all have ties to the first civilization. So it's its own fiction that's being woven into Assassin's Creed since the beginning. It's just from like 1 to 2 and the early days, we didn't fully understand like what the extent of this power. We still don't know the extent of all of these different artifacts are from the first civilization. So I can understand if it's just like very casual people that come into this and it's like, I don't want this like weird mythical bullshit. It's like, oh, but you know, they did this and they did that from historical things. Or like, we shouldn't care about any of this. And it's like, that's all valid to anybody's particular taste and how they view or how they play the games. But to say that anything is invalid when it's a story of fiction already, it's just, it has bits and pieces of historical parts to it. You know, sure, go crazy. Like give me the most like hallucinogenic boss fights I can get. I don't care. As long as it's fun. That's the only thing I care about. As long as it's fun and it doesn't make me like cuss up a storm when I'm like spending an hour and a half trying to beat one boss.
Yeah.
Quickly also, Justice mentioned like, should we lean more into the kind of camp versus realism? And you know, I think it goes hand in hand with that, and I had to agree that the camp, I mean, it's kind of the fun moments, like, you know, like you were saying, Da Vinci and Ezio just being bros, you know.
Like like you can have like the bits of, because that's what I think was very interesting when they pick a period in time that has documentation of like stuff that happened in the period, but then there's a lot of stuff that is left to myth and left to interpretation, is when they can really dig in and just kind of make it their own. And that's what makes stuff like this really fun, is that you can see whatever creative is getting their hands on a certain type of subject can make it creative and make it work for the story they're trying to tell. Which just kind of goes back to my critique. It's like, I want them to be able to tell a story. I don't want them to have to kind of fill in a story just to kind of make what they're trying to do work. Is what I care about.
Nice. We're about to hit the 2-hour mark. I of course wouldn't mind talking much longer, but I think that would be kind of nearing where we need to stop. We go a little over less, but I just want to ask you guys before I throw 2 more questions at you guys. If you have any questions, just you wanted to ask us, you haven't already, before we start wrapping up. Because we've almost been talking about Assassin's Creed for 2 hours. Awesome, but you know, can't do it forever, or can we? Just if you guys have a question you wanted to ask, or just things we came up we haven't addressed yet.
I want to ask.
Yes.
Go ahead. Oh, I was gonna say. We've all talked about, you know, Ezio and Arno. The assassins we like. I was gonna ask, who's your least favorite assassin out of the whole franchise? Someone that you'd like. I did not like this character as much. I didn't relate to him as much.
Interesting. Okay.
I'll go first. I'm gonna say Shay, because he fucking betrayed the order for the right reasons. But I was like, fuck this guy. It was for me a dissonance to play him. I was like, why? This is not what we've been playing. But it was like the experience, right? You are. This is what he's going through, and but then of course the ending. You know, you brought it up. I was like, that tie into like Brian. I played Rogue after Unity. Even there's like a recording somewhere. Me and Brian are streaming it. I'm like, wait, where the fuck are we? And then all of a sudden I was like, no fucking way. And of course we walk up, you know, and we kill Arno's dad. So least favorite that wise, but that's what I'm gonna say.
Shay.
Good question.
Fuck.
My first, and I guess I'm having the opposite reaction where I just you know what? I guess I'll say, I don't, it seems like the ones that are my least favorite assassins are the ones they've kind of positioned to be like the bad assassins. Like Shay is, the point of it is that he turns his back on the creed and becomes a Templar and all this. But I'll try to throw out a hot take. I guess Edward Kenway. Fuck that guy. What's he do? I think really cool. I think about it oftentimes of just kind of that sequence in between where he's like having that dream about like being at the dinner party and all the kind of poet in the background that's acting as the Greek chorus to be like, and the jackdaw thinks that it can fly as high as the eagle, but it cannot. And I'm just like, oh, that's the whole thing. That's what it is. And basically, so I'm going to say, yeah, Edward, not a good assassin, literally raises his kid to be a Templar, doesn't really follow the creed that much. What that guy sells out, becomes a rich douche. Screw that guy.
Fair.
Nice. Good. I'm gonna go. I was gonna say I don't like Jacob and Evie, the Fire Twins. They're cool, but their storyline, I was like, okay, whatever. They're just like, oh, we need to do. We're going to do our own thing. That we were told to stay here. We're gonna go and solve this mystery ourselves. I was like, all right, what typical kids rebelling and whatever.
We're twins. We're gonna do our own thing.
We're so cool. We're assassins. We can do what we want. We're gonna start. We're gonna build our own gang and do it. I was like, okay, whatever. Like,
sure.
Get it. And then the mechanic and going into the mechanic, the way you switch off like between them, I thought it was kind of dumb because it's like you just magically transform to someone else. I thought it'd be cool if they did like how they did with GTA, where like whenever you switch a character, it goes somewhere else to the city to them.
Right.
If they did that with Jacob and Evie, where like your Jacob's here, and then if you want to switch off to Evie, it'd go to somewhere else in London, and it'll pop you there, and she's like in the middle doing something, and you can do something. I thought that would be more interactive with that, but the fact that when you switch off, it just glitches out, and then you're back. I was like, oh, okay, whatever.
Yeah, I like that you could beat both of them, but it is rough when you're like, wait, so these twins have the exact same build? Like you just realizing, like, wait, that means Jacob is just like the most squat dude like around. He's like 5'4", just getting into all these like Victorian England bar fights and thugs, and it's like, oh wait, dude, you're the same height as your sister. How tall are you guys?
Yeah, exactly. I was just like, yeah, and she's running around in heels and all that. I'm like, I doubt the Sass could do that.
Yeah.
But those are my least.
Man, I really have to think about this because I don't necessarily hate any of the main protagonists, but I have to pick my least favorite. Just based off of technicality, I think I have to say Cassandra. Like, I love Cassandra. She's a badass and she's really cool, but she's not an assassin. She's literally like the only protagonist of the series that's like factually not an assassin. Like we were talking about earlier in this conversation, like she doesn't have a hidden blade. She never joins up with like the whatever the order, like the order before it becomes an order, just based off the timeline thing. When you look at later content of her, like beyond Odyssey, she's on her own. She's doing her own thing. Like she doesn't really abide by the Assassin Brotherhood. She doesn't really, she even says it herself. She doesn't really like communicate with them at all. She kind of just, she's hunting artifacts on her own. She does her own thing. But that's just like that's just like side content, that's not like main game. So like for main game content, like, yeah, I think that's why Odyssey for me is like a little bit of a miss, because it's very bloated, but then also it's just like, it doesn't have, like, literally you could call this game like anything else. You could call it like fucking like, Breaker of the Oracle or something like that. Yeah. But like, something else. And it's like, okay, cool. But like, this is an Assassin's Creed game where you're not an assassin.
Yeah.
It's like you're not even like tangentially like close to being an assassin. So like just based off that, I'm gonna say Cassandra.
Yeah, Andra.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yep.
Your question,
Uh,
Justice.
Oh,
Or Brian.
yeah, I guess we can ask my question. It's pretty broad, but I've kind of danced around it a little bit. But yeah, what is the point of Assassin's Creed, I guess? What are they selling you guys on now?
Hmm.
What would bring me back to the franchise? Is it this overarching historical conspiracy that can tie humanity together and just make it? Is it just that it's going to be continual increments of historical importance that we're going to get little perspectives on? Is it going to be just like combat? Is it stealth mechanic? Like, what kind of keeps you guys coming back to Assassin's Creed?
for me, like I know like the past few games have been like a hit or miss for me. Like not completely misses, but the one thing I always look forward to in an Assassin's Creed game, you know, take away the mechanics, take away the traditional like Assassin's Creed formula, is if the game has interesting characters that I can get behind. Like just think about it this way, like as far as like Ezio's story goes, like you have like the Ezio family, you have like the people of Florence, you have the Borgias, like you have Da Vinci. There's so many casts of characters that are all unique and all different that bring you in. And even for like games like beyond that, like you have like I know you're talking about, you know, not liking Edward, but like for me, it's like Edward was a different character, but then also it was the cast that was around him. Like you had Blackbeard, you had Calico Jack, you had the Gentleman Pirate, you know, kind of forming him around like Anne Bonny. Oh my God, Anne Bonny became such a character by the end of that game. At least for Edward's story. Like there's so many interesting things they could do as long as they create characters that you can care about. You know, like what I was saying before, Revelations, like yeah, there's Ezio and there's the Yusuf, but like God honest truth, I can't even remember any of the other characters in that game because they were just there.
Uncle
they weren't
Mario.
Well, Uncle Mario, but like for a split
Mario.
second.
Hey, Mario.
And of course,
But he's dead by then.
I don't
He's
know
not
if
in
he's dead, but
Revelations.
Yeah,
I know
I don't know if he dies. I think he dies in
No, he's
Brotherhood, maybe.
assassinated at the beginning
say
of
he-
Brotherhood.
that's right.
That's
He's
the
dead in
whole thing.
Brotherhood.
Yeah.
His
Killed
sister,
all
his
of the
sister
compound,
was
right?
mentioned. His sister was mentioned in Revelations.
Right. He's writing letters to Claudia.
Yeah.
As he's
Yeah.
like going to.
Claudia.
Right. But like and then you have Altair and then his story, which for me was like the most fascinating part of that game, which is like the Altair stuff and like seeing where everybody else was left off in. And his wife Maria and like his kids like trying to escape from the old like fortress that they had when everything went to shit. But like the thing that kind of misses me with Assassin's Creed recently, which I still keep coming back to because I want to see what they do with stories. I want to see the characters they introduce me to get an interesting story out of them, which is why with Shadows coming out, what's intriguing me about that is one, just like finally going to Japan, seeing what they can do with that environment, but also with the Yasuke and Naoe, just seeing how they meet together, how like Naoe's family being kind of like, from just like what they've been telling us and what the trailers are, like obviously they have ties to the Assassin Order, and like seeing how that intertwines with the isolationist period that is coming upon them as like the story is going to start. And then of course Yasuke being this just mountain of a man, like getting to become like one of like the top like samurais in like his group that he falls upon to, and like his daimyo that he like fights with. But then it's getting to see that story of like how they meet and how they kind of work together to take down whoever the big bad's going to be that is pushing this isolationist, propaganda out into like this version of like Ubisoft Assassin's Creed Japan is what's really getting me to want to play it.
Yeah. I think if you go Assassin's Creed 1 through 4, my argument would be, the reason why you would go into Assassin's Creed is for the storyline, the Desmond storyline, the story of what's happening, what's going to happen, why are we in this past time, what are they looking for? If I were to make an argument just for you to like, hey, why would you should drop into Origins or Odyssey or Valhalla, the storyline is kind of got convoluted along the way, kind of got whatever, but I would just go in for the mechanics of like what new stuff are they introducing to these games, especially even with the older games. With one, you had one, okay, they introduced the blending system, the stealth system, the parkour. They said, if it looks climbable, you can climb it. Okay, that's cool. 2, now you have dual blades, now you have new inventions. 3, they introduced ships, now you can sail ships and have some pirate or ship battles. 4, now you have pirate battles, now you have islands, you have the sea journey and exploring the seas. Unity introducing more mechanics. So I would go in with, if you could take away maybe the Assassin's Creed title and just play these games as if just like a regular RPG game, they'd be enjoyable. You enjoy the new stuff that they're adding. I mean, I'm enjoying Odyssey right now, and I'm enjoying the whole wanted system. When you keep doing a lot of bad stuff, they're gonna start sending mercenaries after you, and the more higher level, the higher level mercenaries are, and they're constantly chasing after you unless I think you can bribe yourself out of the wanted system or just kill the guy that has like your bounty. And so I thought that was pretty cool. And introducing, what I liked with the older games was like the eagle vision, where like you turn around, you can like highlight everything. And the newer games now, it's like an actual eagle. So like now you're in the perspective of an eagle looking over things, which is pretty cool. But then you're like, okay, how are you able to communicate where you tracked from an eagle to a person? Like are you are you one of those speakers? One of the speakers from Game of Thrones where you can like communicate with them? Yeah, you can like communicate with creatures now and stuff like that, see through their eyes. And so I would just go in with, take away the whole Assassin's Creed name and just go in with like, this is just an RPG game that you can enjoy.
Yeah.
Cool. It has a pretty cool storyline. But if you can just look past the whole Assassin's Creed thing, you'll enjoy the game for sure. So that would be my argument of why you should try out the newer ones as well.
Justice, did you play the Shadow of Mordor games?
I did. I played those, and that's kind of unfortunately like not a great sales pitch for Assassin's Creed. Is like the most like jazzed I felt a little bit was Brian being like, yeah, I like Cassandra because she's not really an assassin and she just kind of operates and does her own thing in history. And like, yeah, that sounds pretty cool. She's not an assassin? I'll play that game. But like, that's not the point of it. Like, you can't sell me on a franchise by being like, oh, you've got nothing to do with the title? Great.
Yeah. But do you remember the Nemesis system from Shadow of Mordor?
Yeah, I've been waiting for like something else that has like a Nemesis system.
So there is a game coming out that is going to have that, but I say that because what Vic was talking about with the mercenaries in Odyssey, it's kind of like that, where your notoriety goes up, but then these mercenaries will come hunting you down, and like sometimes they'll kind of have this like, it's like, oh, we found you, Cassandra, or Alexios, depending on who you talk to. It's like a lightweight version of like that, which like, thank you for like reminding me about that system, Vic, because that was one thing I actually did like about Odyssey.
Yeah.
Was it reminded me of the Nemesis system in that game. Yeah,
and if you kill the mercenaries, you go up higher in the rank of your own mercenary rank. So like the more you kill, the more mercenaries you kill them, or you can even hunt down these mercenaries if you want to. Like, you can go off and start hunting them down if you want to. You'll go up on the ranks, and then there's like an arena and stuff like that. Yeah, that whole mercenary system was pretty cool, and it kind of got annoying though, because sometimes I'll be doing a mission, and then they're already there hunting, and you're like, oh great, now I have to like watch out for this guy. I'm trying to do a mission, and this guy's like nearby hunting you down. So now you have like the enemy you're trying to like sneak by, but you also now have this other mercenary that's trying to sneak by, and they always somehow know like to be in your general area, and you're like, ugh, like this is annoying. Like I have to kill this guy too. So it could be like, it's like a double-edged sword. Like, it's cool, but like it can get annoying at times when you're doing missions when you're like, or if you're just trying to walk by the city and then all of a sudden you hear the noise of like the mercenaries nearby, you're like, oh, great, now I have to run away.
Yeah.
or fast travel.
But as far as like, if I had to I think we've probably talked about this before, Justice, but like honestly, like if I had to recommend you a game that's beyond Syndicate that you haven't played, like honestly, Origins is probably the best bet just because it's that nice branch between what the franchise was like before, but then you get the RPG elements as far as like you getting to customize your loadout. And it doesn't have a lot of like, it doesn't weigh you down with like, oh, okay, well, I gotta level this up. I gotta level this up. It's like, no, it's like you find weapons that fit your play style, but then you're still playing Bayek of Siwa. You are still going through his story and trying to go through story of his grief, of him being the last magi in Egypt, and the Order of the Ancients is actively trying to basically wipe him off the face of the earth. And like his story with the relationship with his wife, and leading up to kind of like the invention of what is going to be the modern day Assassin's Brotherhood.
Yeah.
And like seeing like basically the
Creation of the order.
the creation of the order as a totality. Like I feel like, or like that's why also feel like Odyssey let me down so much, because I was riding a high with Origins. Like, okay, like this is a new era. It's cool. We got a good story, and now we're kind of easing more into RPG-ness. And it's like, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah.
To echo what they said, definitely I agree with all their points. Nemesis is fun in Odyssey. It definitely does ramp up the RPG style. There are points where you can kind of stealth and hide and be an assassin, but that's not who Cassandra or Alexios are narratively at all. But it's still a good story. But again, like you have to look at it as like, Breaker of Oracles or whatever. I think Origins is a good transition point. It's definitely not suffering from the grindiness of Odyssey and Valhalla, and you still have some sneaking around, and the story is really good. And I think that's the main motivation. Like I would pitch to you, because I know you're big on story, but by comparison, they are bloated to the other games, especially Valhalla. I rushed through Valhalla. Even I played it on easy so I could play Mirage and kind of get ready for this roundtable specifically. But it was great action, but I ever feel like an assassin with Eivor, even though she had the hidden blade. It's just not her style. But she, I am an assassin. I will do this for the Order. I personally didn't feel that, but it's still a good story, and the lead up to Mirage. It's just so fucking much though in that game, too much. So if you were interested, like if you want something new, go in with Origins, and especially the mythical stuff. If you're into that, I love that shit. So I think they did a great job with that. If you're ready to dip your toes to something a little more, I think you should try Odyssey for a little bit and Valhalla. But if you kind of want to go back to the old stuff, like I want to feel like an assassin of importance, go with Mirage. But yeah, I think they're trying all these new things, but they're not like fine tuning it at the same time.
Yeah.
It's strange, their direction. Like for me, I'm pretty forgiving, so it's like, okay, I'll roll with it. But like to bring old people back, like retention, it's not there. I feel. Yeah. The story is strong, especially in Origins. Bayek goes through some shit. That's all I'm gonna say.
He does. It's crazy.
Cool.
Yeah, and I think just to kind of bounce off of what you were talking about, Joel, I think that's just like the issue overall that we've been talking about the past 2 hours now, is that Ubisoft is such a big company that does so little now.
Yep.
Because let's see, at least let's just like look at their current lineup that they have, like starting with Origins. Like they had Origins, and then they had the main team that worked on Odyssey, but then it's kind of like almost like the Call of Duty situation where Valhalla was made by the team that made Origins, and now Shadows coming out is made by the team that made Odyssey. So it's like you have the main team and you have every other team that's assisting them in making this big project. But the question remains, are they communicating with each other?
Yeah.
Are they sharing like the story beats that they have intended? And I'm sure there's like some small team that's in charge of like looking through the story and trying to make it make sense. But I'm hoping that maybe now with Ubisoft that they can actually have a moment in time where, like, okay, we're making our big game. We're going to let it sit and we're going to actually take the time to work on it, because that did so much good for Valhalla. Like, Valhalla became like the most successful game that they ever made so much money, but it's because they took time after Odyssey and they took time post Valhalla to really improve on it and actually give people their money's worth. Like, not what just DLC, but like Valhalla had like seasonal content and it had like community like goals and community missions that kept updating like weekly and it's like it fed people for 2 years. Now, is that something you would want from Assassin's Creed game? I guess that's up to like the individual, but it shows that they can make something that is deemed a quality product. They just need to have faith that they can take the time away from the franchise in order to make it quality again.
Yeah. Ubisoft doing Ubisoft things.
Yeah. Brian, you got any more? You got something you want to throw at us before we bring it home? Before we exit this animus?
Exit the animus.
Back to reality.
Actually, you know what? Thank you for inspiring this question, Joel, because I actually want to ask you guys the concept of the animus. What are some of the things that you appreciate about that mechanic, or is there something that you kind of wish they would do with that mechanic?
Well, that's interesting.
I mean, it sounds like, again, they've gotten what you guys have said about some of the later games. They've kind of gotten to the sense of that, like, you know, maybe some of these things we experiencing as far as gods or something along those lines are shifts in human perception. Just like the things that you are registering are the closest things that like a human can figure out to what's happening. That's why who Anubis is, that's who Odin is, or whatever. It's just like whatever ancient alien thing that has become close enough to being like a modern day remnant or whatever, a ghost of a, you know, a computer code that has continued to operate thinking that it is actually Minerva, whatever you want to call it. I guess the thing I did like about it, and the thing that kind of causes me to have like issues sometimes, is like part of it was this idea of genetic memory, so that like once you were passing it on to your kid, that's kind of when the animus would take over, or that's when the story passed on. So I just don't understand like logically having access to all these data banks. I think that's actually pretty cool what you guys mentioned about Unity, of this idea of like, well, no, we've got all the data. We just need people to sift through it. And that continues to create this tension of, well, there's the people who are the power brokers and they don't care because they're just amassing power and just kind of pushing things along. And ultimately what the assassins kind of value above everything else is like truth and the reality of the situation and just kind of understanding how all this is playing together. But I think there's always going to be that opportunity to be like, oh man, there's some researchers that are kind of putting together these actual pieces and actually having the animus be this technology that is created by Abstergo that could actually be Abstergo's downfall is kind of an ironic idea. So yeah, I think it's cool. I just wish it could be sharpened a little bit more. I wish they knew what they were doing with that, and maybe that could be a big part of the next game. I don't know. Is there Animus databank? Is that what the war could be? Is the war over the Animus databanks of the assassins trying to get in there and then realizing like, oh right, that's where all the power of the Templars is kind of in this, you know, bureaucracy of information. I don't know. But that's kind of what I think about when I think of the things that are intriguing about the anime.
Okay.
Yeah. I like how the Animus has evolved from the first game all the way to like the newer games, where like the first one it was just like this big slab on the table and you just lay down on it, and then
Uncomfy fucking table.
Yeah, it looked like just a big table. Yeah, and then you have Regan, what's her name, Kristen Bell's character, for her name, Lucy. I think her name is Lucy. Yeah, Lucy and the other professor, they're just standing over you, just watching you. And I'm like, okay, that's kind of just standing there like, rise and shine,
Mr. Miles, are you ready to dive back in?
As you're looking through like the CCTV cameras, he's changing the angles of the camera. But I like how it like evolved. Like, you know, in the second one, it's like, oh, we have a mobile one here in the van if you want to, you know, use it. Or and then what I didn't like was in 4 when you're that developer and you just put on glasses or whatever and you start like you're in. I was like, okay, that's kind of weird. You know, I kind of
like-
want it to be like cyberpunkish where you like jack in and you start like, you know, you start going in. Like that would be pretty cool. Or like the Matrix, or you're just like jacking into like the Matrix, or and so I like how it's evolved, especially in the newer ones. It's like now it looks like a suitcase, like a big old suitcase you can carry around with you, and like just get in the animus and start, you know, diving into these ancestral memories. But yeah, I think something that I would have had a problem with is like the way you're transported into like these worlds is like through like a visor or through something. Like what if someone like smacks the visor out of your head? Like are you like
Get
automatically
fucked.
like oh crap, I need to find out what's happening or what's going on. Like, you know, you're not like deep
The
dived in
bleeding
or like
effect.
yeah, exactly. So it's like maybe a little bit more explanation of how you're able to transmit into like Ezio's world, or you know, into the eyes of Ezio, like, you know, not just like a little visor that just goes over your head and you're like, and then this white bright light, and all of a sudden you're in. I mean, again, you know, science, I guess, but
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, it's
that's
kind of
fine.
like how they in Revelations they revealed like, oh, there's like the black room or the
Yeah,
dark room of the Animus, like this hidden like corridor in the Animus somewhere where the memories of Subject 13 were like just hidden, like
mhm,
nobody knew existed. It's like,
yeah,
okay, well, there's obviously something there
yeah.
that they just don't tap into as a
Which
franchise.
I thought that was pretty cool. That little storyline of Subject 13, the, you know, before Miles and what happened. I thought it was pretty cool. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's my gripe with the Animus.
I think they could get weirder. I think what happens if an EMP hits and you're in? Do they get wonky? Do they start glitching? You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
if there's like a flood, like, you know, will Ezio become Cronenbergian? Like, yes, it's a me, Mario. You know, like I want them to get creative with
Like the T
it.
pose, or like the
And
T pose.
yeah, exactly. I think they could get a little more meta
Mhm.
with that kind of stuff, but because we're always assumed safe. I think there's a couple times we had to like eject out, you know, or you know, maybe it like fucks up the person's appearance. They like, or you know, they literally come out thinking they're Ezio or
Yeah.
Arno or whoever, right? They're not Layla, they're not Desmond. So
Mhm.
I think they could play more with that. That's my critique, or what I want to see more.
Mhm.
Otherwise, I like the concept. I like what they're doing. I think they could. I think this is the time they're already established. We've done mystical shit. Let's go strange. Let's
Mhm.
play around with this thing we've been using the whole time. You know,
Mhm.
let's bring it back in a little and do some more. Or
Mhm.
even like you load in and it's, oh shit, isn't this Altair? Or, you know, it's an error. Oh shit, wait, Arno, what the fuck are you doing here? You know,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
Cassandra's here. Like
yeah, yeah,
I think they have the opportunity to do stuff like
yeah,
that, and
yeah,
they should, because it's been what, like 15 years now. Like I
yeah.
think they could start using their own stuff more like that.
Mhm. Definitely. Glitches in the Animus.
Glitch in the Matrix.
Yeah.
Hey, Brian.
I kind of just like echoing what a lot of like you guys said. Like, there's definitely things they could do with it nowadays that could be interesting and unique. Just like, because it's been just such like an afterthought as of
Mm.
late. You know, it's the device that they've had since the beginning that just explains how they're able to do it. But now it's kind of, it's more of a background piece than it is the actual like subject of the matter. Subject.
Hey.
So it would be nice if, kind of like what you're saying, Joel, if they could make it like the integral like point again. If to be like, hey, you know, something's going on. They're having like this, like, fuck, let's just have like a big like psyop war over the Animus. It's like Abstergo and the Assassin Order are trying to like gather as much information as they can. So they're just having an all-out war of trying to utilize the Animus, and like let's have some like Animus fuckery going on.
Mm.
Like let's say like let's have maybe Abstergo's figure out a way to hack into Animuses through other agents. And so like you're playing a game, but all of a sudden there's like an incursion happening, and an Abstergo agent's breaking in through your
Mm.
like trip through the Animus. And so you kind of have to like deal with that while also dealing with like the past like historical events that you're going through
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that. And so it's
That'd be
like
pretty
this
cool.
whole. It would be cool. I think it would be cool. So
Like Watch Dogs meets Assassin's Creed.
they lightly hinted that the Watch Dogs universe is in the same universe, because in Watch
Really?
Dogs 1 there's a side mission that teases that what's his name, Aiden, I believe,
Yeah.
takes out an Abstergo agent,
Really?
because it's a character. It's like a secondary character from that era of Assassin's Creed games that after Watch Dogs comes out, he's gone.
Really?
Like in like the archives, it's like it says that character, it just got like taken out by somebody,
Oh,
like a rogue agent or something like that. So it's like
that's pretty cool.
like Watch Dogs hasn't been doing well. Like,
Yeah.
just to be fair, like the past two games, especially the last one, hasn't done well. So like let's take some of that concept in. Let's do some fucking hacker war shit.
Yeah, that'd be pretty
You
cool.
know, let's make it matter again.
Yeah, definitely.
Because like the original games were like so like it's like, okay, we need to use the Animus to look at Altair's history to find like the Apple of Eden, and then we need the Animus because through the bleeding effect we can train Desmond to become like a good enough assassin to like go on missions in Assassin's Creed 3
Yeah.
and take out the headmaster of the Templar Order.
Yeah.
And it's like, since then it hasn't really mattered that much.
Yeah.
Like so yeah, let's get crazy. Let's do something with it.
For sure.
And also let's stop killing Master Templars in movies that don't matter. Because that was wild.
That movie killed itself.
Yeah.
All right. Last question, then we'll wrap up, do our plugs, and say goodbye. Would you go into the Animus and meet or become your ancestors? Would you do it?
Ooh.
I mean, yes, because I'm like a history nerd like that. Like I spend too much time listening to podcasts about historical societies. I've mentioned recently, or even the last year, that one of my favorite podcasts is called The Fall of Civilizations, and that's kind of like part of the stuff that would interest me about like origins is literally seeing like, oh, did they just do their own thing? Did they just kind of commit to this idea of ancient Egypt and kind of what we do know about that and the best exploration of that it would be good? Because guys, I mean, don't get me wrong, but I've read all the Greek mythology. I've seen the Norse mythology. I played Skyrim. I played Gods of War. Like I'm tired of like Greek stuff. I'm tired of Viking stuff. I'm tired of like Japanese stuff. I'd much rather play like Sekiro or Ghost of Tsushima or just kind of anything. I would even play, what we love doing is play, Sea of Thieves and these other pirate games over what Ubisoft is doing. Are they still just riding people's coattails? I like that Mirage at least feels like a little bit of like, we're going to spice something up that is, something that is at our core, Prince of Persia and Assassin's Creed, and just kind of reinvigorate it. So I can appreciate that. But I got a little digressed, but that's kind of, I guess, what interests me is like, is this 9th century Baghdad I would be exploring? That seems cool. If it's a little bit more mystical and weird, I like if it is like a Prince of Persia game, I'm less interested. But if there's the kind of, high concept perspective version of like these areas of history that we have not explored, I would be more interested in. I would be interested in some, 15th century, Burmese temple, like the spread of Buddhism in that area or something like that. I would be interested in, some maybe South American stuff. Is that like, I guess kind of part of it, as I mentioned, some of the history gets Disney-fied a little bit. One of the things I've noticed Disney doing is they will make somebody a villain because they've got like a pointy metal hat. That's the only way you know that is a villain. They're like, oh, they've got that conquistador hat. That's how I know that they're a bad guy. That's who could just kind of make the new stormtroopers, is like just kind of put a conquistador hat on somebody. So I just kind of would even be like, let's really explore that. Let's literally kind of really get into the fall of Tenochtitlan and see kind of like what that would look like from these historical perspectives. Because that's even a little bit of like, and it's difficult writing these lines of a little bit in Syndicate. There's some stuff where you go into World War I era. And it's just, I like that idea, but again, that stuff is just maybe too close historically just because of like I remember like, oh yeah, you meet Winston Churchill and he's such a cool guy, and I'm like, Winston Churchill was a lot of things. Maybe we don't want to just kind of like broad strokes Winston Churchill, but it's kind of the Forrest Gump thing where like we need to put in these important characters, and it's like not all of those characters have great legacies, and not all of them are like discussed reasonably. So it's even a little bit I understand pushing back a little bit further, pushing back to the ancient times. But I would love to see. I've been listening to re-listening to a podcast on the Roman conquest of Gaul, how Julius Caesar rolled into Gaul and wiped out 100,000 people, and just even looking at like, right, Gaul culture was defined. It's just kind of this antithesis, barbarian ideas to Rome, but just what does it mean to be a civilized barbarian, for lack of a better term? So I think there's all these just different areas of historical note that they could kind of touch, that they could kind of play with. I'm just a little tired of seeing like, oh man, they made a really cool game about samurai era or about piracy or about this and that, and then like 4 years later, Assassin's Creed's like, hey guys, we've got this game that's set in Greek mythology / Japan / et cetera, et cetera. I'm like, yeah, I think I'm sorry, I think Ghost of Tsushima probably does that a little bit better than what you guys are promising.
Definitely. Yeah, go, if I had access to Anonymous, I'd probably be too scared to see my own ancestors, because I'd be like, what if my life was a lie? Like, what if my ancestors' lives were a lie? Like something like they were like some crazy like war tribe or something like that that went murdering around people or something. But it'd be, to go with what Jess was saying, it'd be pretty cool if I'm able to jump to like someone else's ancestry or see like the history of that through the Animus. It'd be pretty cool to do that and relive or see through the eyes of the French Revolution or what was going on with things of epic historical events. I think it'd be pretty cool to see. I probably wouldn't go with my ancestors because I'd just be too scared to discover dark secrets maybe, or feel like they were just boring. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. But I'd be cool to see like history through the Animus and stuff like that.
So it'd be very tempting, right? Just based off of like my own family, I do have an ancestor that fought in the Union at Gettysburg.
Oh wow.
So like it'd be kind of, because how old was I? I was like 17. Me and my dad took a trip back to Pennsylvania to see his family. And we actually went to Gettysburg to find the Pennsylvania monument that had all the Union soldiers. And like we found like one of my ancestors like on that monument. And it was like, oh shit, like I have ties back to here. And just like seeing the area now, it's like, of course it's, it's been so long, but like they literally had like so many things happening in just like this one section of Pennsylvania. Like to the point where like they were fighting so much, like the creek turned red.
Oh wow.
And so I'm just like, it'd be so wild to see what that's like, but also it's like I don't know if I would want to per se.
Yeah.
But I guess like on the flip side, if I like chose like my mother's side, it would be cool to see what Hawaii was like before the annexation.
Oh yeah.
Like back when it was its own kingdom. And like just see the differences between how it is, like reading like the historical documents of like how that came to be, and like actually like, looking at it through like the perspective of like somebody that's experienced it like when it was happening would be kind of wild. But also to what you're saying, Vic, it would just be cool like to be able to have like a data bank and being like, oh, I want to go see what like golden era, Baghdad was like, or I want to go see what the Caribbean was like back in all the pirates were just kind of hanging out in Nassau. Fuck it. I don't know. Like it would be a very tempting offer, but I guess like the risks run with it because like, okay, well, if you're in it too long, what could happen to you?
Yeah. Fleet effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You start seeing things.
Yeah. Yeah.
It'd be interesting though.
Yeah, definitely. For sure.
Yeah, I do it. Fuck it. I want to know. Some things you can know. Some things I think you can know.
Yeah.
Origin of the universe? Nah. what my fucking ancestor was doing, hanging out in South America or the Philippines or, China, whatever. Yeah, I'll see what they were up to that day. It was probably boring as fuck, but hey,
Yeah.
whatever. 2 hours in, see what happens. World War II stuff might be a little too scary for me. I don't want to see people fucking blow up in front of me.
Yeah.
But I think it'd be interesting to see. But yeah, getting stuck in there wouldn't be great,
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to go back to like, some dude like, hanging out in a cave and they don't know fucking if they're gonna find food for like a week or whatever.
Oh my
I don't
gosh.
want that. I'm cool. I'm cool off that. When the culture comes in, I think that'll be cool. But yeah, maybe I'll change my mind when I'm a little older. Like, maybe some things we should have known. But yeah, so yeah, we've almost hit 2.5 hours. Thanks, guys. This is great. Brian and I have been meaning to do this for a while, so I'm glad you guys could have joined. And we're able to join and go through these great questions. And yeah, I think we all were a little bit on the same wavelength, which is cool. But also we had some differing opinions and ideas, so that's always fun. And I just like seeing where you guys are at too with it. And even like Justice coming out, like, I don't think I'm coming back. That's great. I like hearing that shit. Like, I'm like, yeah, I'll probably play Shadows, and you're like, nah, I'm done. Like, that's good. But yeah, before we go, final thoughts and any plug and do your plugs, guys. So go ahead. Whoever wants to go first.
I don't really have anything to plug. I'm just a guy that shares his nerdy opinions about things when he is prompted. So, if you guys have plugs, share your plugs.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Well, again, Brian, Joel, thank you again for having us here. This has been fun, blast. I want to do more of these with you guys. If you guys ever have any more, I'd love to put my 2 cents worth in it on nerdy opinions. We all have some, and I love hearing different opinions, different storylines. And the Star Wars one was fun. Go check that out, guys, if you haven't already. And whenever this one drops, I'm excited to see here. This one of Assassin's Creed. I could talk all things video games. You guys know that we can always talk about all things, get different opinions, and we can go 6, 7, 8 hours of just talking about video games, and I love it so much. But thank you again for having us. My plug would be, again, if you guys want to check out Games You Must Pod. That's a podcast where we talk about all things board games, video games, pop culture, mostly centering about board games and video games, kind of like you guys. And you can find us on all socials. We're on Facebook, Instagram, X, TikTok, YouTube, Games You Must Pod. And give us a follow. Follow these guys. Follow United We Nerd, guys. You guys are awesome. Give them a follow. Check out the cool content stuff. And hopefully I can get in on this competition that you guys have going on here for that belt, because I want it. I want that belt. It look good right here behind you. It's all blurred out, but it look good over here on my wall mantle.
All say Vic is for that next one. Maybe work on your shooter skills. Brian's got to work on it too. That's a little hit for him. So,
interesting. But yeah, thank you guys for having us.
Yeah. We appreciate you guys come and hang out with us again. It's always a blast. And of course, for everybody watching now, we have plenty more roundtables. Like Vic was saying before, we did a Star Wars roundtable just recently. Go check that out. We talked about Star Wars a lot. We've also had a few other roundtables in the past that you can go check out on audio version, at least, before we did video. And, me and Joel having a lot more roundtables coming up in the future, so gotta check that out. Of course, as we were saying, we do have also championship streams every month. So if you want to hang out with us and also help maybe dictate who will be the winner, come watch us at United We Nerd at twitch.tv/United We Nerd, as well as the VOD versions on YouTube as well. And thank you, Joel, for, again, putting on another really great roundtable.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much.
Again, the guests make it fun. Like Brian said, we've done other ones. I'm really proud of our Dungeons and Dragons one we've done. So check out that one if you haven't seen that one. We've had people who literally been in it for years and someone who literally just started. That's, again, I like having the different viewpoints and perspective. It just makes it so interesting.
That one was awesome here.
Thank you guys again for coming. Yep. Work in the dark, serve the light, or some of us are gone. That's okay. That's okay.